Chapter 365. Is that so? Yi Hao sneered at Second Elder. Is that so? You don't even have a chance. You've already broken through once. I don't believe that you can. Ding dong. Congratulations to host for consuming 90 million experience points. Congratulations to host for leveling up to Emperor Wu rank 9. This time, Yi Hao didn't hide his breakthrough aura at all. Second Elder wanted to mock Yi Hao, but the words that he wanted to say were stuck in his throat. It was as if he had eaten a dead mouse. He couldn't say or swallow his words. Oh. Commander is mighty. Commander is mighty. Seeing how domineering Yi Hao was, breaking through without a word, all the Imperial Guards were immediately subdued. Since when was it so easy to break through? Everyone, including Second Elder, thought at the same time. The higher one's cultivation level was, the harder it was to break through. This was a principle that even a 3-year-old child knew. For someone of Yi Hao's cultivation level, it would take at least 10 years for him to break through once. Of course, this was excluding those who had special opportunities. However, Yi Hao didn't even need to cultivate. He could break through whenever he wanted. Furthermore, he broke through twice in a row. Who else could do this? Is it enough now? Yi Hao smiled at Second Elder. Humph, if you want to slap my face, I'll slap your face first. Yi Hao sneered in his heart. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Second Elder broke out in cold sweat. He had lost the advantage of his cultivation level. Due to the destruction of his alchemy furnace, he had less than 90% of his cultivation level. Now that Yi Hao had broken through again, he was afraid that he wouldn't be a match for Yi Hao. Do I have to use that? Second Elder started to feel conflicted. When he was training in the past, he had a great opportunity and obtained a forbidden spell. This forbidden spell could unleash an attack of a beginner martial sage. He couldn't bear to use it. If he used it on Yi Hao, it would be a waste. Old bastard, go accompany your son. Yi Hao raised his blood-stained dual blades and attacked the Second Elder. Let's go all out. The Second Elder hardened his heart and immediately took out a forbidden spell. What is this? Yi Hao suddenly stopped his attack and looked at the strange animal skin in the Second Elder's hand warily. He knew very well that the item that the Second Elder took out at this time was definitely not ordinary. Master, quickly kill him. If my guess is correct, that should be a forbidden spell. The voice of the weapon spirit of the Dragon Prison Lake immediately rang out in Yi Hao's mind. The voice was filled with urgency. Forbidden curse. Yi Hao's expression changed when he heard the words forbidden curse. Because forbidden spells have long disappeared from the Myriad Kingdom continent. A forbidden spell was similar to engraving a formation. The only difference was that it required a powerful technique to be engraved into a piece of beast skin. Moreover, it had to be a powerful beast skin, or else it wouldn't be able to withstand such power. Moreover, the forbidden spell was very simple to use. It could be released by directly tearing the beast skin. At this time, Yi Hao didn't have time to think about how the Second Elder had a forbidden spell because he already felt that his life was in danger. He felt as if he had been locked on by a terrifying aura. This feeling was like a knife in his throat. If he was hit by this forbidden spell, he was afraid that he would really be in danger. Butterfly shadow step. Yi Hao had no choice but to think and quickly rushed towards the Second Elder. He definitely couldn't let the Second Elder tear this beast skin. Haha, little bastard, weren't you showing off? Now you know how to be anxious. Go to hell for me. Seeing Yi Hao's anxious expression, the Second Elder sneered loudly. He didn't have time to think and immediately tore apart the forbidden spell. Rumble! Suddenly, the Second Elder's hand shone brightly and a 1,000-meter-big palm formed in front of the Second Elder. There was no doubt that although this palm was only 1,000 meters long, the power it contained could definitely turn an empire into nothingness in an instant. Oh no! Yi Hao didn't expect that he was still one step too late. He was anxious, but he was already very close to the giant palm. And now, he was like an ant in front of the giant palm. Although the giant palm hadn't attacked him yet, Yi Hao could feel the power emanating from the giant palm. It was soul-stirring and made him feel powerless. At this time, Yi Hao didn't even have the thought of running away. "Yi Hao, run quickly!" Mu Qingyu shouted at the top of her lungs when she saw that Yi Hao was sweating profusely and standing in front of the giant palm in a daze. Hearing Mu Qingyu's shout, Yi Hao suddenly came back to his senses. He hadn't expected this forbidden spell to be so powerful. It had actually made him lose his composure before it even attacked. "Run!" Yi Hao's heart sank as he immediately retreated. "You're only trying to escape now? It's over. Ha 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 ha." Seeing Yi Hao desperately running away and his helpless back, the second elder couldn't help but laugh maniacally. Boom! The giant palm finally formed. It seemed slow, but it was hurtling towards Yi Hao at an extremely fast speed. Suddenly, the sky changed color. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The spectators who weren't mentally strong enough were scared to death. As for the Imperial Guards and Mu Qingyu, their hearts were in their throats. They didn't know if Yi Hao would be able to escape alive. Faster, faster! Yi Hao kept reminding himself in his heart as he ran at full speed. However, the giant palm behind him was getting closer and closer to him. Yi Hao could feel the destructive power coming from the giant palm even from behind him. It's over. This thought appeared in everyone's mind at the same time. Because at this time, Yi Hao was only a few feet away from the giant palm. Ha ha ha! The second elder and Gudanzan's disciples laughed proudly. That's enough. Suddenly, a loud shout came from nowhere. The giant palm that was about to hit Yi Hao's back instantly shattered into nothingness. Who dares to ruin Gudanzan's plans? The giant palm was so close to killing Yi Hao. Who would have thought that at the crucial moment the giant palm would actually be shattered by someone? Now that the giant palm was gone, it meant that he no longer had a chance to kill Yi Hao. Moreover, he had wasted his forbidden spell. If that was the case, he would suffer a great loss today. Most importantly, he didn't know if he would have a chance to escape. Suddenly, two figures appeared in front of him. One was white and the other was green. Looking at the back of the green figure, the second elder wanted to curse. But suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. Strange? Why did this back view look so familiar to him? Yi Hao felt the weight on his back lighten. His back was drenched in sweat. He immediately turned around and saw the two of them. Yi Hao immediately thanked them. "Thank you for saving my life, sect leader Gua." "No need to thank me." Gua Zhenyu smiled and waved his hand. His tone was still as gentle as ever. "Lu Ji, are you all right?" Looking at Yi Hao, Gua Shuefu suddenly felt a little shy. She opened her mouth for a long time before asking. Yi Hao shook his head. Looking at Gua Shuefu, who had lost a lot of weight, Yi Hao asked puzzledly, "You look so haggard. You seem to have lost a lot of weight?" Gua Shuefu was suddenly embarrassed to say it. If Yi Hao knew that she had waited for him day and night in front of Roaring Beast Valley for a few days, how embarrassed would she be? Seeing his daughter lowering her head and playing with the corner of her clothes, Gua Zhenyu smiled and said, "You little brat, you've caused my daughter to suffer. Ever since you entered the Beast Roar Valley, my daughter has been sitting in front of the Beast Roar Valley, anxiously waiting for you." "Father." Hearing Gua Zhenyu's words, Gua Shuefu panicked and became even more shy. Who is she? Why does it seem like her relationship with Yi Hao isn't ordinary? Mu Qingyu looked at Gua Shuefu. This beauty whose looks were comparable to her, and Mu Qingyu felt a little jealous. Moreover, wasn't Yi Hao the little city lord of Yan Huang City? Chapter 366. Mu Qingyu looked at Gua Zhenyu, who was floating in the air, and knew that Gua Shuefu had a powerful background. Otherwise, how could the massive palm that he had used to attack Yi Hao earlier have suddenly crumbled? Moreover, she didn't even see Gua Zhenyu make a move. Gua Zhenyu only let out a shout. With just a shout, Guo was able to easily destroy the forbidden spell. From this, one could imagine how powerful Guo was. When the second elder heard this familiar voice, he was so scared that he peed his pants. He quickly knelt on the ground and said, "Greetings, sect leader." Hearing the second elder's words, the other Gudanzan disciples looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They didn't understand why the sect leader was here, but they didn't have time to think. Dozens of disciples knelt on the ground and shouted in unison, "Greetings, sect leader." What? This person is the sect leader? Could it be the sect leader of Gudanzan? Why would the sect leader of Gudanzan come to such a small place? It seems that the sect leader has a good relationship with Lu Ji and Yi Hao. Everyone looked at Guo with respect. Some of them even knelt on the ground. After all, Gudanzan was a saint-class force. It was one of the top forces in the 10,000 countries continent. How many geniuses and proud sons and daughters wanted to enter the ancient alchemy sect no matter what? And now, they were lucky enough to meet the sect leader of Gudanzan. Naturally, they were very excited. Moreover, if Guo took a fancy to them, they might be able to join Gudanzan and have a meteoric rise. "Sect leader, this kid killed my son. Please avenge me." The second elder knelt in front of Guo and cried. "There's such a thing?" Guo frowned and looked at Yi Hao questioningly. "That's right." Yi Hao didn't deny it because he was sure that Guo wouldn't do anything to him. "This kid is really like what my daughter said. He's not safe anywhere." Guo scolded him in his heart. Logically speaking, the second elder was one of the most important figures in Gudanzan. Now that his son had been killed and he knew about it, he should avenge his son. If it had been someone else, he wouldn't have cared, but even if it was the Grand Commander of the Baixing dynasty, he wouldn't hesitate to kill him. But this person just had to be Yi Hao. He was at a loss for what to do. "Why did you kill him?" Guo obviously did not expect Yi Hao to admit it so readily. He had originally thought that since Yi Hao could deny it, he could use the investigation as an excuse to dodge this matter. After all, there were so many people here. How could he abandon Elder Gudanzan and openly side with Yi Hao? If this matter were to spread to Gudanzan, it would greatly damage his image and prestige. "I don't like him because he's ugly." Yi Hao said something shocking, "And this old thief, I don't like him either. He's too ugly." Cough, cough. Guo choked on Yi Hao's words. He thought to himself, "Can't you be more tactful with your words? Why do you have to be so direct? You killed him because he was ugly. Can't you find a better reason? Look at his face. Isn't it ugly? He looks like a pile of poop." Yi Hao pointed at the second elder, whose face was filled with rage. At the moment, the second elder's face was contorted with rage. "Sect Master, please uphold justice for us. This brat is simply going too far. He doesn't put our ancient alchemy sect in his eyes at all." Under second elder's indication, all of the ancient alchemy sect's disciples spoke in unison. "Sect Master Guo, this old thief must die," Yi Hao said firmly. Everyone was shocked when they heard Yi Hao's words. Could this person be more important to Guo than an elder? However, there were also many people who felt that Yi Hao was being arrogant. No matter what, the second elder was a member of Gudanzan. He was also an elder. He was Guo family. How could Guo kill his own people for an outsider? Unless Guo was sick in the head. Guo closed his eyes and pondered. The two of them would not rest until one of them was dead. He had to make a decision. Guo suddenly looked at Guo Shuefu. She was looking at him worriedly. Guo sighed inwardly. "For my daughter, I'm going all out." "I'm sorry." Guo eyes glowed. Before anyone could understand what he meant, Guo aura surged. "Why? Sect Master." Never in his wildest dreams would the second elder have imagined that Guo would actually attack him. Furthermore, all of his disciples had already been wiped out. "Humph!" Guo snorted and killed the second elder in an instant. Guo Zhenyu knew that if news of this got out, Gudanzin would be finished. Kill. Guo Zhenyu's heart sank. He knew that he could not let these onlookers live. Sect Master Guo, stop. Yi Hao was very satisfied that Guo Zhenyu had killed the second elder. However, when he saw that Guo Zhenyu was about to attack the onlookers, Yi Hao immediately stopped him. Why? I've already killed him. What else do you want? I can't let these people live. Guo Zhenyu looked at Yi Hao in confusion and said in a firm tone, Let these people go and I'll help you rebuild Gudanzin. Yi Hao said directly. You? Guo Zhenyu obviously did not believe that Yi Hao had the ability to do so. Wait until you become a martial sage. Sir, please spare my life. The onlookers did not expect Guo Zhenyu to kill his own people for an outsider. However, this also meant that Guo Zhenyu would silence them. After all, as a sect master, Guo Zhenyu was helping an outsider and killing his own disciples for no reason. This was definitely a huge taboo. If Guo Zhenyu's competitors caught hold of this weakness, Guo Zhenyu would definitely be consigned to eternal damnation. At this moment, Gudanzin was surrounded by danger. Many factions were secretly eyeing this fat piece of meat. Moreover, some elders were colluding with other factions. It could be said that Guo Zhenyu was suppressing Gudanzin alone. However, Guo Zhenyu was very powerful and he was very strict in his work. Those elders could not touch his position. But now Guo Zhenyu had killed the second elder. To him and the ancient alchemy sect, this was definitely a dangerous move. If they were the slightest bit careless, the colossus that was the ancient alchemy sect would be destroyed. I don't have the strength of a martial sage, but that doesn't mean that I don't have martial sage subordinates, Yi Hao said casually. His soul points were enough to summon a peak martial sage expert. Therefore, it was really easy for him to help Guo Zhenyu rebuild Gudanzin. What? Guo Zhenyu's expression was not as calm as before. I'm really curious. Who exactly are you? After a while, Guo Zhenyu sent a voice transmission to Yi Hao's mind. You'll know sooner or later. But I'm still worried. At this moment, Guo Zhenyu was clearly moved by Yi Hao's words. If there was really a martial sage helping him rebuild Gudanzin and deal with those elders, then there was no need to kill these onlookers. However, what made him suspicious was whether Yi Hao had martial sages as his subordinate. Moreover, Yi Hao actually had martial sages as his subordinates. How powerful was Yi Hao's background? He had no choice but to be careful. If you don't believe me, you can lock them up temporarily. Then we'll do as you say. As long as you help me rebuild Gudanzin, I'll let these people go. Moreover, I don't think I'll interfere in the matter between you and my daughter. Cough cough. Yi Hao coughed dryly. He thought to himself, I have nothing to do with your daughter. Chapter 367. It will take some time. I have something to deal with now, Yi Hao said without hesitation. Because the matter of the beast monster sect was imminent, he had already promised Sun Ba even if it wasn't to complete the mission. He had to keep his promise to a subordinate. What's the matter? Guo Zhenyu looked at Yi Hao. He was afraid that Yi Hao would misunderstand, so he explained, Is there anything I can help with? Yi Hao wanted to refuse at first, but then he thought about how Gudanzin was also an alchemy sect, and how Gudanzin was a sacred force. Maybe they could really help him. Moreover, where could he find young alchemy disciples now? Maybe he could borrow a few people from Guo Zhenyu. Oh? You mean the beast monster sect and the spiritual medicine sect? After hearing Yi Hao's words, Guo Zhenyu's expression was a little surprised. What? Sect Master Guo, you know? Yi Hao looked at Guo Zhenyu. No matter what, Guo Zhenyu was the leader of a sacred force. How could he know about two small sects? Their previous pill sect was a branch of Gudanzin in the Myriad Kingdom continent. How could I not know? Guo Zhenyu laughed. This surprised Yi Hao. He didn't expect that there was such a relationship between the two. Then now. Yi Hao didn't understand. Pill sect was a branch of Gudanzin. How could it fall to its current state? Moreover, he had never heard Sun Ba mention it. Guogenyu sighed and revealed a look of reminiscence. The river of time will change many things. Moreover, this history is too long. At that time, Pill sect relied on Gudanzin, and everything was going smoothly. After growing stronger, they actually wanted to separate from Gudanzin. But how could it be so easy? But no matter what, they originated from the same branch. Gudanzin couldn't be too ruthless, and could only suppress them a little. I didn't expect that after Pill sect separated, there would be internal conflicts. Pill sect directly disintegrated and became the current beast monster sect and spiritual medicine sect. Gudanzin, on the other hand, didn't have the time to care about their affairs. He just let them die on their own. From what I see, Gudanzin also has internal problems. You don't have the spare energy to care about the alchemy sect anymore. Yi Hao looked at Guogenyu with disdain. Ahem. Guogenyu did not expect Yi Hao to not give him any face. That's right. This is all because your grandmaster is useless. I've been unable to break through for so long. Right now, your grandmaster is almost unable to suppress that bunch of greedy wolves. Guogenyu said with a desolate face. It could be said that everything he was doing now was taking a risk. He could only hope that Yi Hao's background wouldn't disappoint him too much. Guogenyu suddenly thought, I heard that the two sects are going to hold a competition recently. They even invited me, Gudanzin, to be their special envoy. It's just that I've been ignoring them. Why would they invite Gudanzin to be their special envoy? No matter what, no matter how poor Gudanzin is, they're still one of the best among the alchemy sections. That's not what I meant. I want to know why they still have the nerve to separate from Gudanzin. Please send someone to be their special envoy. That's because they're now at a moment of life and death. They want to rejoin Gudanzin, but it's not that easy. Yi Hao instantly understood what Guogenyu meant. To Gudanzin, the alchemy sect was a traitor no matter what. Even if it had happened a long time ago, it was still unforgivable. Otherwise, how could they establish Gudanzin's prestige? I'll have to trouble Grandmaster Guo to help me send a message. Just say that the Bishing Sacred Dynasty will send an envoy to watch the competition. Sigh. What should we do? I don't know where our Grandmaster is. I'm afraid this time, our beast monster sect is finished. I heard that Mu Shengzhen's envoy has already arrived at the Spirit Pill sect. It seems like Mu Shengzhen is most likely going to support the Spirit Pill sect. At this moment, the beast monster sect was in a state of depression. The elders, including the sect master, had lost all will to fight. Suddenly, the expression of Sun Ba, who was sitting on the main seat, changed. All the elders knew that something bad was about to happen. Sect master, what's wrong? No one dared to ask. Only Wang Chong asked. I just received news that the Bishing Sacred Dynasty and Gudanzin have sent envoys to witness the competition between the two sects, Sun Ba said with an extremely ugly expression. What? Why would the Bishing Sacred Dynasty send someone? And didn't Gudanzin say that he wouldn't send anyone? Sun Ba's words made everyone's expression turn ugly. The envoys sent by these two factions definitely had nothing to do with the beast monster sect. Didn't that mean that these two factions were targeting the Spirit Pill sect? If that was the case, then the beast monster sect was doomed. Moreover, they had investigated for so long but still couldn't find any information about Yi Hao. In their view, Yi Hao was probably doomed. Don't give up until the last moment. Have our disciples cultivate hard. Sun Ba instructed the middle elder. In fact, even he himself didn't have much hope for this competition. However, things had already come to this point, so he had no other choice. Yes. All the elders immediately obeyed. Don't let him escape. Mu Qingyu suddenly shouted. Yi Hao immediately turned around. It turned out that Li Jiazhu saw that his backer was dead and the relationship between Mu Qingyu and Yi Hao wasn't ordinary. He knew that if he didn't escape now, he would definitely not have a good ending. So while everyone was looking at Yi Hao and Guojianyu, Li Jiazhu wanted to quietly escape. Who knew that Mu Qingyu's eyes were fixed on him? As soon as he made a small move, Mu Qingyu immediately shouted, "Trying to run?" A cold smile appeared on Yi Hao's face. With a light wave of his hand, he grabbed patriarchally. "Lord, please spare my life." Li Jiazhu was caught by Yi Hao and immediately begged Yi Hao for mercy. "I'll leave it to you. Beat him back for me how he hit you." Yi Hao ignored him and threw Li Jiazhu at Mu Tianyu's feet. Hearing Yi Hao's words, Mu Tianyu was delighted and a cruel smile appeared in his eyes. He remembered every punch that Li Jiazhu had thrown at him earlier. He had thought that one day he would pay Li Jiazhu back 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. But he didn't expect this moment to come so quickly. "Little bastard, what are you trying to do?" Li Jiazhu immediately wanted to retreat when he saw Mu Tianyu covered in blood and with disheveled hair. But his body had been locked down by Yi Hao and he couldn't move at all. "How did you hit me? I want to pay you back." Mu Tianyu looked at Li Jiazhu and his tone was full of hatred. "Don't, Master Tian, Master Yu, I was wrong. Please spare me." Li Jiazhu had no choice but to lower his head and immediately chose to beg for mercy. Although Mu Tianyu was young, Li Jiazhu's gaze was so terrifying that it made him panic. Li Jiazhu regretted it now. If he had known, he would not have hit Mu Tianyu. Or he would have just killed him. Now, he had tortured Mu Tianyu half to death and now it was Mu Tianyu's turn to take revenge on him. "It's too late to call me your ancestor." Mu Tianyu raised his fist and punched Li Jiazhu's head mercilessly. Crack! The sound of teeth breaking could be heard. "You little bastard, how dare you!" Li Jiazhu spat out a mouthful of blood. 2 or 3 teeth could be seen in the snow. Li Jiazhu grimaced in pain. "I'll let you scold me. I'll let you scold me to your heart's content." Bam! 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 Mu Tianyu used all his strength and punched Li Jiazhu's face again and again. Li Jiazhu's entire face collapsed in an instant. It was extremely terrifying. Chapter 368. This kid's aptitude is not bad. Guojianyu nodded as he looked at Mu Tianyu, who was venting his anger. Yi Hao's eyes lit up when he heard this. No matter what, Mu Tianyu would be his brother-in-law in the future. He should give him a chance. Yi Hao looked at Mu Tianyu and realized that Mu Tianyu actually had peerless talent. He was definitely a genius, but his physique was a little too weak. Of course, this was definitely because the Mu family did not have enough resources. Fortunately, Mu Tianyu was still young and could make up for his weak physique. Yi Hao smiled and said to Guojianyu, "Sect leader Guo, since you don't have a disciple, why don't you accept him as your disciple?" Hearing Yi Hao's words, Guojianyu was obviously a little tempted. However, he did not dare to agree as he was not sure of Mu Tianyu's true talent. After all, no matter what, he was a martial sage. Taking in a disciple was something that could not be too shameful. Yi Hao naturally knew what Guojianyu was thinking. He immediately smiled and said, "Sect leader Guo, don't worry. I guarantee that this kid's talent will definitely surprise and satisfy you." Guojianyu smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Who is this kid? Why are you showing off for him?" "I'm definitely not exaggerating. If you don't believe me, you can bring him back for testing." Seeing that Guojianyu did not believe him, Yi Hao did not say anything else. He knew that it was better to let Guojianyu bring Mu Tianyu back for testing. Whether he was a dragon or a worm, they would know when the time came. He believed that with Mu Tianyu's aptitude, Guojianyu would definitely be happy to accept him as his disciple. "Then we'll do as you say. I'll bring Gudanzin back first. I'll put it bluntly. If his aptitude is not good, I will definitely not accept him." Actually, Guojianyu was also curious as to why Yi Hao dared to say that Mu Tianyu's aptitude was not bad after just one look at Mu Tianyu. One must know that a person's aptitude and talent were usually very difficult to discern. That was why he needed those testing crystal pillars. Based on his many years of experience, he felt that Mu Tianyu was not bad. However, this was just a feeling, and he did not dare to jump to conclusions. Even he, a martial sage, did not dare to jump to conclusions. What was the reason Yi Hao was so certain that Mu Tianyu's aptitude was not bad? Guo Zhenyu looked at Yi Hao curiously. Yi Hao had been looking at Mu Tianyu for a long time. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, the people of the Li family did not expect the plot to turn out like this. There was a 360-degree turn. They knew that at this time, the Li family's dream of dominating the Mu royal city would most likely be directly declared shattered. Didn't you hear? Even the sect master of Gudanzan wants to take the young master of the Mu family as his disciple. Regardless of whether they accepted it or not in the end, the Mu family could be considered to be riding on Gudanzan's coattails. At the very least, Mu Tianyu could also become Gudanzan's disciple. And looking at the current situation, it would be very difficult for the Li family to get through today. Family head, I've always said that your son and daughter are absolutely extraordinary. See, I was right, wasn't I? Of course, how can the son and daughter of the patriarch be bad? Humph, a small Li family dares to mess around on top of our Mu family. They are simply seeking death. Patriarch, the people of the Mu family also did not expect that Mu Qingyu would know Yi Hao, and instead ride on Gudanzan's coattails. And seeing that Yi Hao was so familiar with Guo Zhenyu. Who was Guo Zhenyu? He was the sect master of Gudanzan, a genuine martial sage expert. He was an existence that they could not even dream of. And now, with just a few words from Yi Hao, Guo Zhenyu actually had the intention of taking Mu Tianyu as his disciple. No matter what, with Lord Mu's status in the Mu family in the future, no one would dare to offend him. And Mu Qingyu's relationship with Yi Hao was not ordinary at first glance. They were also afraid of Yi Hao. Think about it, just Yang Lifeng alone was enough to make them so scared. He was someone who could easily kill Yang Lifeng. And he was able to make Gudanzan's sect master kill one of his own elders for him. They could imagine that this person's background was not as simple as being the commander of the Bai Xing holy dynasty. At this moment, they were all wondering if Yi Hao was the illegitimate son of a martial sage expert in the Bai Xing holy dynasty. Otherwise, why would Guo Zhenyu be so indulgent towards Yi Hao? Humph! Lord Mu snorted coldly. This time, he completely saw the true colors of these fence-sitters. Master, we have no choice but to protect ourselves for the sake of the Mu family. Please don't offend us. Patriarch, we are willing to accept the punishment. But no matter what, we are still from the same clan. Patriarch, please forgive us. We promise that we will listen to your words in the future and obey your orders without any hesitation. We are absolutely loyal to the head of the family. Hearing Lord Mu's cold snort, all the elders looked at each other and immediately knelt on the ground, trembling as they cried and begged for mercy. Daughter, I'll leave this matter to you. How do you want to deal with it? Lord Mu stroked his beard and thought for a while. Then he suddenly said to Mu Qingyu, What? Me? Mu Qingyu was surprised to hear her father's words. She knew that in her father's heart, the family was the most important thing. This was her father's character. Since when did her father allow a woman to interfere in the family's affairs? At this moment, all the elders of the Mu family secretly cursed Lord Mu for being a sly old fox when they heard Lord Mu's words. This was because they believed that even if Lord Mu decided to punish them now, he would not be too ruthless. Moreover, if he was too ruthless, everyone could feign compliance. After all, they were not afraid of Lord Mu himself. They were afraid of Yi Hao, who was behind Mu Qingyu. However, if Mu Qingyu was the one to decide the punishment, things would be different. At the very least, Mu Qingyu would not care about their past relationship because there was no past relationship between Mu Qingyu and them. Moreover, even if they wanted to feign compliance with Mu Qingyu's decision, they did not dare to do so with Yi Hao around. unless they did not want to live anymore. Moreover, it would be fine if they were killed normally. Thinking about Yang Lifeng, he was eaten by rats and only his head was left. Everyone shuddered at the thought of this. Daughter, you decide. Lord Mu looked at the crowd's reaction. The more he looked at his daughter, the happier he was. His daughter had really found a good son-in-law for him. He had finally vented his anger for him. Moreover, Lord Mu had compared Yang Lifeng to Yi Hao. That was because Yang Lifeng could not be compared to Yi Hao. Yang Lifeng was just a Pao in front of Yi Hao. In fact, he was even worse than a Pao. Then I have decided. I wonder if all the family members and elders will agree? Mu Qingyu scanned the crowd and said. Everyone felt bitter in their hearts. At this time, unless they did not want to live anymore, who would not listen to her? We are willing to listen to eldest young lady's punishment. All the family members immediately bowed to Mu Qingyu. My decision is that all the elders of the Mu family will be removed from their positions as elders. We will see what happens next. What? All the elders were shocked. The position of an elder represented power. Now that they were removed from their positions as elders, it was equivalent to them being deprived of their power. If this was in the past, they would not agree even if they were beaten to death. Yi Hao suddenly made a sound of dissatisfaction. All the elders panicked. With this person around, they did not have the right to refuse. We agree. All the elders said with bitter expressions on their faces. Lord Mu was overjoyed when he heard the elders' words. He looked at Yi Hao's eyes. The more he looked at him, the more he liked his son-in-law. That was because he had been waiting for this day for too long. However, he had never had the chance to remove these elders. After all, many elders had used their positions as elders to oppose him openly and secretly. Although he was the head of the family, he could not have all the power. Many things had to be approved by the elders. Chapter 369. Also, now that the Mu royal city has been destroyed, I need all the elders to contribute a sum of money to rebuild the city. We agree. No matter what Mu Qingyu said, none of the Mu family members objected. Because if they wanted to live, they had to listen to Mu Qingyu. At this moment, they wished they could worship Mu Qingyu. You have some talent for management. No matter what Mu Qingyu said, Yi Hao did not interrupt. He only watched quietly from the side, releasing his aura from time to time to intimidate the Mu family members. Seeing Yi Hao staring at her, Mu Qingyu could not help but blush. Seeing Yi Hao and Mu Qingyu flirting with each other, Guoshuefu snorted jealously and stomped her feet. She did not understand. Yi Hao had only been out for a few days. How could he have gotten to know a beauty so quickly? That's not right. What does it have to do with me whether he knows a beauty or not? I'm just showing concern as a friend. Yes, that's right. That's right, Guoshuefu thought to herself. Disciple Mu Tianyu greets master. Under Yi Hao's signal, Mu Tianyu immediately dropped Li Jeju, who was like a dead dog in his hands, and knelt at Guojenyu's feet obediently. At this moment, Mu Tianyu was extremely excited. Although he was still young, he had never thought that he would be able to have a martial sage as his master one day. Just thinking about it made him very excited. Mu Tianyu knelt at Guojenyu's feet, his body trembling nervously. He did not even dare to raise his head to look at Guojenyu. Even the aura that Guojenyu unconsciously released made him feel like submitting to him from the bottom of his heart. Get up first. I haven't agreed to it yet. Guojenyu looked at Mu Tianyu's actions and knew that it was Yi Hao's doing. He could only glance at Yi Hao helplessly. Mu Tianyu didn't get this chance, so how could he give it up so easily? He knelt on the ground and refused to get up. Guojenyu waved his arm, and Mu Tianyu felt a surge of energy in his legs, and he stood up involuntarily. Mu Tianyu was so anxious that his forehead was covered in sweat, but how could he resist Guojenyu? He could only look at Yi Hao for help. It wasn't easy to get such an opportunity, so he didn't want to waste it. Don't worry, as long as you perform well and cultivate diligently in the future, I guarantee that you will become his disciple. Yi Hao comforted Mu Tianyu in his mind when he saw the desire on his face. Thank you, brother-in-law. Hearing Yi Hao's promise, Mu Tianyu exclaimed happily. At the same time, he promised, I will cultivate diligently and not embarrass brother-in-law. Although Guozhenyu didn't understand what Yi Hao and Mu Tianyu were talking about, he still said, no matter what, my disciple's talent can't be too bad. It can't be lower than superior grade. Guozhenyu wanted to say superior grade talent, but after thinking about it, he realized that superior grade talent was too hard to come by. Although he wasn't too satisfied with superior grade talent, it wasn't like he couldn't teach him. As long as he worked hard, he could also achieve something. I understand. Mu Tianyu was happy, but he still looked worried. This was because he didn't know what kind of talent he had. He was afraid that his talent wouldn't be superior grade. If Guozhenyu didn't accept him, what would he do then? Mu Tianyu looked at Yi Hao, and Yi Hao gave him an encouraging look. Mu Tianyu immediately nodded nervously. Lu Ji, you've been having fun these few days. You've hooked up with a beauty so quickly. You made me worry for nothing. Guo Shuefu suddenly said jealously. Guo Shuefu was originally a gentle girl. When she said these words, it sounded very funny. It didn't seem like they came from her mouth. What do you mean by hooking up? Please, when I met her, you weren't even there yet, Yi Hao said, blushing with shame. Actually, looking at Guo Shuefu's haggard appearance, and the fact that Guozhenyu could come here and save his life, Yi Hao guessed that it had something to do with Guo Shuefu. Yi Hao was also very touched. He thought to himself, didn't this girl have a crush on that genius that only appears once in 10,000 years? Don't tell me she fell in love with someone else. Yi Hao, who is she? She's so beautiful. Mu Qingyu suddenly acted out of character and gently held Yi Hao's arm. Yi Hao couldn't help but have goosebumps all over his back. What was going on today? Why did these two girls seem a little abnormal? Yi Hao? Is this your real name, or is it another fake name? Tell me honestly, what is your real name? The gentle Guo Shuefu also grabbed Yi Hao's other arm and asked in an arrogant tone. I'm so envious. I'm so envious. There are beauties on both sides of him. If you give me one of them, I'd be willing to lose all my cultivation. Don't talk about losing all my cultivation. I'd be willing to die immediately. Seeing the beauties taking the initiative to throw themselves at Yi Hao, and there were beauties on both sides of him, they were even fighting over jealousy. Everyone was envious. Say it. The two girls shouted at the same time. Hiss, Yi Hao was just about to answer when he suddenly took a deep breath. He looked down and saw two pairs of hands on his ribs. The two girls seemed to have discussed it and actually made their moves at the same time. Don't pretend. Say it. My name is, what? Seeing that Yi Hao was deliberately keeping them in suspense, the two girls curiously stretched their heads over. Smack. Smack. Suddenly, Yi Hao smacked the two girls' faces. After the kiss, Yi Hao remembered that Guo Shuefu and Mu Qingyu's father were at the scene. The two of them were looking at him awkwardly. You guys continue chatting. I'll leave first. Yi Hao felt that the situation was not good and wanted to leave. Kid, don't go. I still have something to ask you. Guozhenyu immediately stopped him and said, Didn't you enter the Beast Roar Valley? Why are you here? This was what Guozhenyu was most concerned about. To Gudanzin, the Beast Roar Valley was full of mystery. Even a martial god expert could not resist the attraction of the Beast Roar Valley. Of course, Guozhenyu was the same. But he was more curious about how Yi Hao could come out of the Beast Roar Valley. If he could come out of the Beast Roar Valley, did that mean that he could also enter it? At the thought of this, Guozhenyu was extremely excited. Guozhenyu looked at Yi Hao eagerly. Guo Shuefu also looked at Yi Hao curiously. This was because the Beast Roar Valley left a deep impression on her. Gudanzan's biggest ban was that no one was allowed to enter the Beast Roar Valley without permission. It was because the Beast Roar Valley was a man-eating valley. Once you entered, you could forget about coming out. After Guogenyu's question, Guoshuefu remembered that it was too strange for Yi Hao to appear here. Of course, I used the teleportation talisman. Yi Hao did not hide and said directly. Teleportation talisman? Guoshuefu and Guogenyu said at the same time. The father and daughter looked at each other and saw the disbelief in each other's eyes. What? You are a sacred force. Don't tell me you don't even have a teleportation talisman. Yi Hao deliberately joked. You really used the teleportation talisman? Guogenyu still did not believe and asked again. Yes, why would I lie to you about this? Seeing Guogenyu's disbelieving expression, Yi Hao replied with a sincere face. Yi Hao did not understand. He had used the teleportation talisman to leave the Beast Roar Valley. What was so strange about it that Guogenyu made a fuss about it? It shouldn't be. How is this possible? Guogenyu's brows were knitted together as he muttered softly. Guogenyu looked at Yi Hao's sincere face and thought that Yi Hao really did not need to lie to him. Chapter 370. From Guogenyu's point of view, this matter was obviously not as simple as Yi Hao said. After Guogenyu asked carefully, he understood that Yi Hao had no need to lie. When Guogenyu heard that there was not a trace of martial arts power in the Beast Roar Valley, and that the valley was filled with ancient beasts, he was immediately shocked. From Guogenyu's point of view, this Beast Roar Valley without martial arts power was really a tomb for martial artists, because even the strongest martial god realm, unless the physical body itself was so strong. Otherwise, without the support of martial arts power in the body, they would also be slaughtered by the ancient beast. As for why only Yi Hao could use the teleportation talisman, Guogenyu couldn't figure it out even if he racked his brains. After Yi Hao heard Guogenyu's words, Yi Hao was also speechless. That 17th disciple really wanted to kill him. He actually let him enter the Beast Roar Valley. That was a place where even martial gods couldn't get out. If he didn't have the system, he would probably have died inside. After listening to Guogenyu's words, it seemed that so far, he was the only one who had come out of the Beast Roar Valley alive. Yi Hao was very curious why it seemed that he was the only one who could use the teleportation talisman. According to Guogenyu, it seemed that the teleportation talisman couldn't be used in the Beast Roar Valley. Suddenly, Yi Hao thought of a possibility, which immediately made him extremely excited. He quickly asked the system what was different about the teleportation talisman that the system dropped. The system immediately explained that the teleportation talisman rewarded by the system was just an ordinary teleportation talisman, no different from the teleportation talisman on the Myriad Kingdom continent. When he thought of that possibility, Yi Hao couldn't wait to enter the Beast Roar Valley again. That place was not only a holy land for leveling up, but also a place where that thing might exist. Thinking of this, Yi Hao felt that his heart was about to jump out. However, without sufficient preparation, Yi Hao didn't dare to enter that place again. Because even if he brought martial gods in, they couldn't level up like him. As long as their martial arts power was exhausted, they would still die. Therefore, if he wanted to enter the Beast Roar Valley, he had to be fully prepared. Sect Leader Guo, where's that brat who harmed me? Yi Hao admitted that he was a vengeful person, but of course, he also knew how to repay kindness. However, he would definitely not let off the person who wanted to harm him so easily. Even if he didn't die, he would make him lose a layer of skin. He wanted him to know that he was not someone to be trifled with. Moreover, he definitely had no enmity with the 17th disciple. It was impossible for the 17th disciple to kill him for no reason. Yi Hao clearly knew that there must be someone behind this 17th disciple, and it probably had something to do with that 5th senior brother. He's dead. Upon hearing Yi Hao's question, Guoshuefu immediately replied softly. What? How is that possible? Did you kill him? Yi Hao looked at Guoshuefu. He thought that Guoshuefu had killed the 17th disciple and wanted to avenge him. He committed suicide. Guoshuefu shook her head. Suicide? Haha, how can you believe such a reason? Yi Hao shook his head and smiled bitterly. It was obvious that he had killed the 17th disciple to silence him. How could it be a suicide? Of course not, but there's no evidence. What can we do? Now Gudanzin is facing internal and external troubles. The 5th disciple is the disciple of the 3rd Supreme Elder. According to seniority, he's about the same as my father. Guoshuefu also smiled bitterly. What? About the same as your father? How is that possible? Although the 5th disciple's strength was not bad, it was only for people of the same age. However, he was only a martial emperor and could not be compared to Guojianyu. If the two of them were of the same seniority, it would mean that the sect leader and the outer sect disciples were of the same seniority. No matter how one looked at it, it was unacceptable. What's so surprising about that? There are tens of thousands of outer sect disciples. Those who can be ranked in the top 5 are definitely outstanding. Naturally, there will be elders fighting for them. However, the 5th disciple was unexpectedly taken in by the 3rd Supreme Elder. Therefore, the 5th disciple's seniority was immediately pulled up. In fact, the 3rd Supreme Elder was deliberately trying to humiliate Guojianyu. Because think about it, if an outer sect disciple was of the same seniority as the sect leader, how ironic would that be? However, this did not violate any rules. Guojianyu felt as if he had swallowed a bunch of dead flies, but he had nothing to say. However, the 5th disciple is ruthless. In order to protect himself, he was even willing to kill his own subordinates. Yi Hao was secretly shocked by the 5th disciple's methods. However, when I return to Gudanzin, I don't care if you're the 5th disciple or the 3rd Supreme Elder. I'll kill you all. Yi Hao felt that if the disciples were like this, the 3rd Supreme Elder would not be a good person either. Otherwise, Guojianyu would not have frowned at the mention of the 3rd Supreme Elder. However, Yi Hao had more important things to do now. He had to go to the primordial ruins. He did not know whether I Ching and Wu Hei were dead or alive. The people of the Thousand Beasts sect were still trapped in the primordial ruins, and he had to go rescue them. Furthermore, it was time to avenge the enmity between him and the Bai Wu sage. Yi Hao, are you going to the beast monster sect? Guojianyu guessed when he saw that Yi Hao had no intention of returning. Yi Hao nodded. Indeed, after he finished dealing with the Thousand Beasts sect, he had to rush to the beast monster sect. Guojianyu was right. Furthermore, Yi Hao did not want to deliberately explain. After all, his enemy was the Bai Wu sage of the Bai Xing dynasty. No matter what, the Bai Xing dynasty was still inextricably linked to Gudanzin. Then let Xuefu accompany you. She will represent the forces of Gudanzin and send an envoy. Guojianyu glanced at Guoshuefu, who had a longing expression on her face. He naturally knew what she was thinking. In fact, even if Yi Hao did not agree, there was nothing he could do. He had already sent a message to the Beast Monster sect and the Spiritual Medicine sect, saying that the Bai Xing dynasty and Gudanzin would send an envoy. Let's forget about it. Yi Hao quickly rejected. After all, his enemy was a martial sage. If he brought Guoshuefu with him, it would be dangerous. Humph, I want to go. When Guoshuefu heard Yi Hao's rejection, she was unhappy and pouted her lips. I want to go too. Mu Qingyu glanced at Guoshuefu and said. However, her tone was cold as before. Looking at the two women, it seemed that even if he did not agree, he had to agree and they would not give up. Yi Hao had no choice but to agree. Yi Hao thought that when the time came, there would be no problem with a peak martial sage. When the two women saw that Yi Hao had agreed, they immediately revealed victorious smiles. It was simply a smile that could topple a city. The two women together could bring disaster to a country and its people. Daughter, you go first. When the time comes, I will send a group of people to look for you. Guozhenyu looked at Guo Shuefu lovingly and said. Then, he waved his arm and brought the people of Mu King City back to Gudanzan. Let's go. Yi Hao summoned the Black Wind Tiger and set off in the direction of the primordial ruins. The 300 to 400 Imperial Guards immediately followed after them. Yi Hao sat on the Black Wind Tiger and frowned slightly. He had not thought of how to deal with this group of Imperial Guards. According to his original plan, he had wanted to kill all of them and contribute some experience points to himself. However, these people had been obedient to him for the past few days, and they clearly treated him as their commander. This made Yi Hao feel a little reluctant to kill them. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for obtaining the task of subduing the 2nd and 8th teams. Task reward: 1 billion experience points. Killing the 2nd and 3rd teams will give you 100 million experience points. It seems like it's time to make a decision. When he heard the system's notification, Yi Hao ordered the Black Wind Tiger to stop. Chapter 371. Let me tell you the truth. I am not the real Lu Ji. Yi Hao looked at the crowd, standing proudly on the back of the Black Wind Tiger, and went straight to the point. What? How is that possible? Commander, are you joking with us? That's right. Commander, your official seal and your voice transmission can't be fake. How could it be like this? When they heard Yi Hao's words, they were all shocked. At the same time, they looked at Yi Hao with a hint of wariness. Let's cut to the chase. Are any of you willing to follow me? Of course, if you follow me, it means that you are no longer the Imperial Guards of the Bai Xing dynasty. You have to think about this carefully. Yi Hao scanned the crowd. Who are you? Why are you pretending to be Lu Ji? Suddenly, someone questioned loudly. My name is Yi Hao. I accidentally entered the imperial city of the Bai Xing dynasty. I had no choice but to pretend to be Lu Ji. Who do you think you are? Why would we abandon a dynasty to seek refuge with you? That's right. The Bai Xing dynasty is considered one of the top forces in the Myriad Kingdom continent. I don't believe that seeking refuge with you is better than staying in the Bai Xing dynasty. Since you are a fake, please hand over your official seal. We are going back to the Bai Xing dynasty. After listening to Yi Hao's explanation and learning that Yi Hao was a fake, the crowd's attitude changed 180 degrees. They finally understood why a piece of trash would suddenly become so powerful and become a commander. It turned out that someone else was impersonating him. Official seal? Yi Hao took out the official seal and said, "Take it if you want." Yi Hao exerted force in his hand and the 2 seals turned into scrap metal. He then threw them to the crowd. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for destroying the official seal of the Bai Xing dynasty. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 10 million experience points. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for destroying the official seal of the Bai Xing dynasty. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 10 million experience points. 2 voices rang in Yi Hao's mind at the same time. Yi Hao was very surprised. He didn't expect that he would gain 20 million experience points just by destroying 2 official seals. However, he was currently Tier 9 Emperor Wu. If he wanted to break through to Tier 10 Emperor Wu, he would need 100 million EXP. Now, regardless of whether he killed this group of Imperial Guards or subdued them, he would be able to level up. You? How dare you destroy the official seal of the Bixing dynasty? Do you want to die? All the Imperial Guards were shocked when they saw the 2 pieces of scrap metal in front of them. These official seals were imbued with a trace of the Holy Dynasty's national fate. Therefore, the official seals were not only a symbol of power, but they were also precious. Yi Hao had destroyed the official seal, which was equivalent to destroying a trace of the dynasty's national fortune. Of course, compared to the Bixing sacred dynasty, the fate of the nation was not even worth a drop in the ocean. But as a sacred dynasty, It was absolutely intolerable. Yi Hao's action was equivalent to declaring war on the Bishing sacred dynasty. Since Yi Hao had destroyed the official seal, his aura would be recorded by the imperial jade seal of the Bishing holy dynasty. No matter where he went in the future, the imperial jade seal of the Bishing holy dynasty would be able to pinpoint his location. At this time, the holy emperor of the Bishing sacred dynasty suddenly opened his dragon eyes. There was anger in his eyes as he roared, "How dare you destroy our country's national fortune?" "Yes, your majesty." Hearing the holy emperor's order, a first-order martial god realm warrior in golden armor immediately knelt on the ground and ran in Yi Hao's direction. "I'll give you a choice now. If you want to live, submit to me. If you don't want to live, we can fight," Yi Hao said and sat back on the Black-Wind Tiger's back. Roar! As if they had discussed it beforehand, the Black-Wind Tiger roared at the sky, shaking everyone's hearts. Among the remaining Imperial Guards, the second squad was basically made up of martial venerables, and the 8th squad had quite a few Emperor Wu. Looking at the Black-Wind Tiger in front of them, they were still afraid. "I will never betray the Bishing sacred dynasty. I will never betray the Bishing sacred dynasty. At worst, we'll die. There's nothing to be afraid of." The Imperial Guards were arguing, but Yi Hao closed his eyes and ignored them. The two women sat quietly beside Yi Hao. "Yi Hao, I advise you to give up. We, the 8th team, won't submit to you. We won't betray the great holy dynasty," said Yi Hao. "The same goes for the second squad. We will be loyal to the Bishing sacred dynasty." "You'd better not waste your time." Everyone scrambled to be the first to speak. They wanted to show Yi Hao that when the time came, no one would side with him. They wanted to see what he could do. They didn't believe that even if Yi Hao had the ability and the Black-Wind Tiger, he could still defeat them. There were more than 200 martial venerables and more than 100 Emperor Wu. As long as they were united, they believed that Yi Hao wouldn't be able to do anything to them. When they returned to the Bishing sacred dynasty, they might even be rewarded handsomely. Who says no one is willing to follow the commander? Anyway, I'm alone. I admire the commander's strength and his imposing manner. I'm willing to follow the commander. Just as everyone was feeling smug about Yi Hao being put on the spot, an unsociable voice rang out from the crowd. Yi Hao's eyelids twitched and the corners of his lips curled up. Fortunately, these people didn't disappoint him. Yi Hao believed that with the first leader, there would be more to follow. "That's right. I've had enough of that bullshit Bishing sacred dynasty's imperial city. Whether you're Lu Ji or Yi Hao, you're my commander." "Me too. I like the commander's temper. I'll follow him." "You traitors!" Many guards who were loyal to the Bishing sacred dynasty couldn't help but step forward and criticize the guards who had sided with Yi Hao. Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. Do you think that you're all loyal? You're just more afraid of death than us because you're more afraid of the Bishing sacred dynasty's strength." The leader who had sided with Yi Hao sneered. "You!" The leader's words made everyone choke. That was because they compared Yi Hao to the Bishing sacred dynasty. They were more afraid of the Bishing sacred dynasty because of the Bishing sacred dynasty's strength. Moreover, the Bishing sacred dynasty's influence was deeply ingrained in their hearts. They didn't even have the courage to betray the Bishing sacred dynasty. As for the two girls, Mu Qingyu still didn't understand what was going on. Guo Xuefu, on the other hand, was shocked. Yi Hao had only been in the Bishing sacred dynasty for a few days. Yi Hao had quite a bit of enmity with these people. The commanders of the 2nd and 8th squads had died at the hands of Yi Hao. Yi Hao could make so many people stand on his side without saying a word. They even dared to betray the Bishing sacred dynasty. Guo Xuefu couldn't understand how Yi Hao had done it. Although she hadn't said a word, she had been worried about Yi Hao from the beginning. Her palms were sweaty now. She had guessed that none of these people would be willing to side with Yi Hao. After all, if she was asked to betray the Bishing holy dynasty, an ancient sacred faction, To work for a random kid with an unknown background, she would hesitate. In fact, Guoshuefu admired the courage of these people who wanted to side with Yi Hao. Chapter 372. Yi Hao took a closer look and realized that although there were many guards who wanted to join him, they were less than 1/3 of the total number of guards. It seemed that the Bishing sacred dynasty's deterrence was still very strong for these people. Cut the crap. If you want to fight, let's fight. There were still more than 200 people on his side, close to 300. Therefore, many of the guards were not as afraid of Yi Hao as they were at the beginning. They drew their weapons and their bodies were burning with fighting spirit. You guys are not worthy of me taking action. Yi Hao chuckled and ordered the people who wanted to join him. I am very pleased that you have chosen to join me. Now, please step aside. When the crowd heard Yi Hao's order, they were very confused. They had heard Yi Hao say that he did not want to fight. They had thought that Yi Hao would ask them to do it. Suddenly, they felt a chill in their hearts. They had thought that Yi Hao would use them as cannon fodder. However, Yi Hao had asked them to step aside. Ha ha ha, we admit that the Black Wind Tiger is very strong. However, do you think it is a match for so many of us? The crowd mocked. They had thought that Yi Hao would overestimate himself and ask the Black Wind Tiger to do it. Did I say that I would ask the Black Wind Tiger to do it? Yi Hao looked at the crowd mockingly. The crowd was even more confused. They did not understand what Yi Hao was up to. Squeak! Squeak! As soon as Yi Hao finished speaking, a strange squeak was heard. The squeak was followed by a swarm of sky-devouring rats. They fell from the sky and pounced on the martial artists around them. Ah, it's the sky-devouring rats! Seeing the swarm of sky-devouring rats, someone immediately shouted in panic. How can there be so many sky-devouring rats? There are at least 2,000 of them. It can't be just 2,000. There are at least 3,000. No, 4,000, 5,000, squeak! Rip, rip, squeak, 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 squeak. Damned heaven-devouring rats! Why are there so many of them? A guard of Emperor Wu's level roared in exasperation because he had killed 3 sky-devouring rats in a row. But the price was that a lot of his flesh had been bitten off. The heart-wrenching pain spread throughout his body and into his mind, but he simply couldn't free his hands to take medicinal pills and treat his wounds. He was also incomparably shocked in his heart because he had heard of the heaven-devouring rat's reputation. But he didn't take it seriously in the past, because in his opinion, no matter how powerful the heaven-devouring rat was, it was only a 5th-rank magical beast. No matter how heaven-defying a rank 5 heaven-devouring rat was, so what? However, this rank 5 magical beast was able to easily break through his defenses. According to common sense, even an ordinary 7th-rank magical beast wouldn't be able to break through his defenses. As for 6th-rank magical beasts, there was no need to even mention them. However, he had suffered who knows how many losses under the mouth of this 5th-rank magical beast. Ah! Emperor Wu suddenly felt pain in his neck. He didn't know when, but a heaven-devouring rat had scurried behind him and ripped off his neck with one bite. Emperor Wu unwillingly covered his neck. At this moment, he still had a trace of life, so he immediately killed the heaven-devouring rat that bit his neck with one sword strike. And at this moment, he could only watch as more heaven-devouring rats came to divide up his body. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for killing Emperor Wu. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 700,000 experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 70,000 soul points. Ding dong, congratulations to the number of heaven-devouring rats increased by 1. Ding dong, congratulations to the number of heaven-devouring rats increased by 1. Ding dong, congratulations to the number of heaven-devouring rats increased by 1. Ding dong, congratulations to the number of heaven-devouring rats decreased by 1. Ding dong, congratulations to the number of heaven-devouring rats increased by 1. Ding dong, congratulations to the number of heaven-devouring rats decreased by 1. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for killing a martial saint. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 40,000 experience points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 4,000 soul points. In an instant, notifications rang out in Yi Hao's mind. The number of heaven-devouring rats was crazily dying, but at the same time, it was also crazily increasing. We were wrong. We surrender. I don't want to play anymore. This is too terrifying. Commander, I was wrong. Commander, I want to follow you. Please tell these rats to stop. In an instant, begging sounds could be heard everywhere. Yi Hao coldly looked at the crowd and didn't say anything. This was because he had already given them a chance. They didn't fight for it themselves and thought that they had more people, so they could threaten him. Now it was time for them to taste the bitter fruit that they had brewed themselves. All of you watch carefully. Since you've submitted to me, you won't have the chance to regret it. If you dare to betray me, don't blame me for being merciless. Yi Hao glanced at them. Among those who had submitted to him, only a small number of them were at 80 points. Not a single one was at 90 points. As for the rest, they were at the edge of 60 points. In other words, they could betray him at any time. This was clearly not what Yi Hao wanted to see. What he wanted were people who were loyal to him. Otherwise, he might as well not have them. If he wanted a bunch of fence-sitters by his side, they might stand out at any time and bite him back. Therefore, Yi Hao had no choice but to warn everyone. We don't dare. When everyone heard Yi Hao's cold words, they hurriedly knelt on the ground. When they saw the scene in front of them, it was like purgatory on earth. They were really scared. Their companions who were chatting and laughing at the beginning were now struggling desperately. If they weren't careful, they would be eaten by several sky-devouring rats. Clearly, they didn't want to be eaten by the sky-devouring rats. They were secretly glad that they had made the right choice. Who would have thought that Yi Hao would have such a trick up his sleeve? He could actually control a group of sky-devouring rats. They were really scared that Yi Hao would order the sky-devouring rats to eat them all. You really don't dare? Yi Hao raised his eyebrows and asked coldly again. When everyone heard the biting sounds of the sky-devouring rats and the many screams, they didn't even dare to raise their heads. They shook their heads desperately. At this moment, they wished that they could dig out their hearts and let Yi Hao see how loyal they were to him. Ding dong, congratulations to host Li Feipeng for increasing loyalty by 10. Loyalty by 8. Loyalty by 12. Ding dong, Li Feipeng's loyalty has reached 100. He is loyal to the host. Ding dong, congratulations to host Shi Chun for increasing loyalty by 7. Seeing that everyone's loyalty had soared, Yi Hao nodded in satisfaction. All of you get up. Then Yi Hao was puzzled. He had killed so many people, but he had also subdued more than 100 people. Did that mean that he had completed his mission? After all, the experience points needed to subdue everyone was 1 billion, but the experience points needed to kill everyone was only 100 million. The difference was 10 times. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for completing the mission. Mission evaluation is in progress. Finally, the last guard was killed by the sky-devouring rats. At this moment, the entire ground was covered in blood and the smell of blood filled the air. However, there were no corpses on the ground, not even the corpses of the sky-devouring rats. Of course, these corpses were all killed by the sky-devouring rat. However, more than half of the sky-devouring rats were killed or injured. After all, the defense of the sky-devouring rats was not even comparable to that of a rank 2 demonic beast. How could they be a match for Wu Zun and Emperor Wu? They could kill a sky-devouring rat easily without using any martial techniques. However, due to the disparity in numbers, the sky-devouring rats outnumbered the crowd by 30 to 40 times. This group of Imperial Guards could only die with regret. But in the end, the sky-devouring rats? I don't know how to inform others. The number of sky-devouring rats increased instead of decreasing. Yi Hao did a rough count. At this moment, there were more than 15,000 sky-devouring rats. In other words, including the dead sky-devouring rats, there were more than 4,000 sky-devouring rats. Chapter 373. However, Yi Hao discovered that the difference between the number of heaven-devouring rats and the number of male and female rats was extremely huge. There were so many newborn heaven-devouring rats, but the number of male rats was actually less than 500, and the number of female rats was several times that of male rats. Of course, there was a reason for this. It was because Yi Hao discovered that the male rat's attack power was much stronger than the female rats. Similarly, as a rank 5 heaven-devouring rat, the toughness of its teeth was much greater. Male rats were several levels stronger than female rats, but female rats could reproduce, making up for this weakness. But in the end, in the heaven-devouring rat group, male rats were the warriors, and female rats were used to reproduce the group. Yi Hao, are these heaven-devouring rats all yours? How did you subdue them? Guoshuefu had also heard of the heaven-devouring rat's reputation. Moreover, ordinary people would not provoke the heaven-devouring rat. As for subduing the heaven-devouring rats, Guoshuefu had heard of them before. But those people had only subdued a few heaven-devouring rats. And because the heaven-devouring rat's defense was extremely poor, subduing a few heaven-devouring rats was actually useless and could not produce any fighting strength. Therefore, people would go and subdue the heaven-devouring rats and do such a laborious and unrewarding thing. But subduing a group of heaven-devouring rats was something she had never heard of, because it was simply inconceivable. The power of the heaven-devouring rat was its teeth. But because of its defense, it needed numbers to make up for it. But who could be so powerful to subdue a group of heaven-devouring rats? Seeing those heaven-devouring rats showing obedient expressions in front of Yi Hao, Guoshuefu immediately felt that it was extremely strange, and asked curiously, "Just subdue her." Yi Hao waved his hand and released the heaven-devouring rat king. The heaven-devouring rat king lay at Yi Hao's feet. Its body was more than 10 meters long, but compared to the huge body of the black-winged tiger, it was much weaker. However, when the black-winged tiger saw the heaven-devouring rat king, it could not help but shiver. Because if it could not kill it in one strike, the heaven-devouring rat king could kill any martial emperor expert in an instant. It was possible that an early-stage martial saint would be laborious and unrewarding in front of it. You actually subdued the heaven-swallowing rat king. Guoshuefu was even more shocked. She had originally thought that Yi Hao had only subdued a few heaven-devouring rats, and then let the heaven-devouring rats reproduce, which was why they had developed into such a large number. What she did not expect was that Yi Hao actually really subdued a group of heaven-devouring rats. It's all because of this little kitten. She wanted to use the sky-devouring rat to kill me, but in the end she was accidentally subdued. When he thought of himself being bitten by the sky-devouring rat, Yi Hao could not help but kick the black-winged tiger's butt. Black-winged tiger glanced at Yi Hao, feeling wronged. Carelessness? Subdue the sky-devouring rat king. When everyone heard Yi Hao's words, they were all shocked speechless. How powerful this group of heaven-devouring rats was, everyone had witnessed it with their own eyes. Nearly 300 martial venerables and Emperor Wu had no chance of survival in front of this group of sky-devouring rats. However, Yi Hao was able to subdue the sky-devouring rat king. How powerful was Yi Hao? Furthermore, he said that he had accidentally subdued the sky-devouring rat king. Did he have to be so demoralizing? Actually, Yi Hao had indeed accidentally found out about the sky-devouring rat's weakness. Then, he summoned the sky-eaten beast and accidentally subdued the sky-devouring rat. Yi Hao was not wrong when he said that he had accidentally subdued the sky-devouring rat. "Commander, I'll have to trouble you to put away this group of sky-devouring rats. We feel very uncomfortable being stared at by them." When the many guards saw the group of sky-devouring rats looking at them with a pair of green eyes, some of them were about to collapse. They could only plead to Yi Hao. Seeing the uneasy appearance of the crowd, Yi Hao waved his hand and recalled all of the heaven-devouring rats. When everyone saw the sky-devouring rats disappear, they immediately heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that they had been scared out of their wits by the sky-devouring rats. Moreover, the sky-devouring rats had become the biggest shadow in their hearts. The scene of the sky-devouring rats slaughtering the Imperial Guards was still fresh in their minds. Therefore, no matter what the reason was in the future, just with the sky-devouring rats around, they would not dare to casually betray Yi Hao. Ding dong, the system mission evaluation is successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 500 million experience points. Phew, that's still alright. Hearing the system notification, Yi Hao was a little disappointed. However, overall, this amount of experience points was not bad. If he was given 100 million experience points, he would have nothing to say. After all, he had killed close to 2/3 of the Imperial Guards. With this 500 million experience points, in addition to the experience points he had obtained from killing so many Imperial Guards and subduing them, his experience points had reached 700 million. At this moment, his soul points, in addition to the 50 million from before, had reached more than 70 million. Bai Wu, it's time to settle the deep hatred between us. Yi Hao looked at the discovery of the primordial ruins with a strong fighting spirit on his face. In front of the primordial ruins, at the peak of a 10,000-meter-tall mountain, there was a person sitting cross-legged on the ground, continuously breathing in martial arts energy. Behind this person stood an old man. At this moment, his face was filled with anxiety. He kept looking at Bai Wu Sage, but he did not dare to speak. At this moment, he was feeling very conflicted. His Highness the Prince was dead. No matter what, he could not escape the blame. He reckoned that when he returned to the Bai Xing sacred dynasty, he would die. Now, he only hoped that by capturing Yi Hao, he could lessen the punishment that the Sage Emperor gave him. "Someone is coming." Bai Wu Sage, who was in the middle of cultivating, suddenly blurted out. "Someone is coming?" Elder Bai immediately looked around. "There seems to be quite a number of people?" Elder Bai released his mental strength and could vaguely sense it. Who could it be? After all, the difference between him and Bai Wu Sage was huge. Bai Wu could only sense that group of people. With his cultivation level, it was already good that he could vaguely sense the number of people. Sage King, could it be Xia Hao? Elder Bai was a little nervous as he spoke. This long wait was an endless torment for him. "I don't think so. I can't sense that kid's aura. Go and take a look." Bai Wu Sage closed his eyes and carefully observed for a while before he spoke. "Yes." Elder Bai did not dare to delay when he heard Bai Wu's order. He immediately flew towards the group of people. D*Eminent. Who destroyed our Wan Shou sect? I must avenge the Wan Shou sect. Sigh. I hope that we can go to the primordial ruins and find our leader. We just went out to train not long ago. How could this happen? Now the entire Wan Shou sect is in ruins. This is too scary. The group of people were arguing angrily with each other. This group of people was I Ching, Wu Hei, Morong Bai and the others. At that time, I Ching had followed Yi Hao back to the outer sect and bragged to a group of disciples. Not long after, Morong Bai came to find them. It turned out that Morong Bai had found an opportunity and wanted to bring his disciples to train. Who knew that just after they left, Bai Wu would attack the Wan Shou sect. When they returned from their training, they saw that the Wan Shou sect was in ruins. When they saw the state of the Wan Shou sect, they were anxious and worried about Yi Hao's safety. However, after a few days of observation, they only found that there were bloodstains in the outer sect. The other peaks were only destroyed, but there were no bloodstains. Hence, they guessed that the rest of the people had either been captured or had gone into hiding. I Ching immediately thought of the primordial ruins, although she did not know if they were in the primordial ruins. Since they were already here, they could only try their luck. Leader, sister, nothing must happen to you. The closer I Ching got to the primordial ruins, the more nervous she became. I believe that our leader will be fine, Wu Hei said honestly. Chapter 374. Elder Bai looked at I Ching, who was leading the group, and recognized her. Back then, it was precisely because of I Ching that Yi Hao and Bai Yi were able to get along. If it wasn't for Yi Hao lending a helping hand, I Ching's soul would probably have long perished. It's you. I Ching was shocked when she saw Elder Bai. You did all of this? You also destroyed the Wan Shou sect? I Ching asked angrily when she saw Elder Bai's proud face. That's right. I destroyed the Wan Shou sect. Elder Bai had been depressed for a long time. When he saw I Ching's angry face, he felt very happy. Where is my boss? Wu Hei also recognized Elder Bai and asked anxiously. That dog was killed by me, Elder Bai said indifferently. At the same time, he looked at the crowd mockingly. He wanted to see their angry and helpless expressions. Elder Bai was in a good mood when he saw that everyone was angry. Ha ha, a martial emperor doesn't even know how to blush when lying. You are so shameless. Murong Bai suddenly sneered. Murong Bai explained when he saw that everyone was confused. If he killed our boss, would he still be here? Ha ha, what an old dog. He doesn't even know how to blush when lying. I Ching laughed loudly. Humph, you are courting death. Elder Bai suddenly made his move, setting off a wave of qi that struck I Ching's body. I Ching was instantly sent flying. Elder Bai coldly snorted, so what? I'll capture you all. I don't believe that dog won't come out. If you want to live, kneel down obediently. Otherwise what? At this moment, a voice exploded behind Elder Bai. Elder Bai was shocked. Who was that person? He had actually appeared behind him without him noticing. At the same time, Elder Bai broke out in cold sweat. If that person had attacked just now, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Elder Bai immediately turned around. You are? Due to the fact that Yi Hao's current appearance had turned into Lu Ji's, none of the elders were able to recognize him at first glance. Moreover, the black wind tiger that Yi Hao was sitting on gave him a lot of pressure. Haha, aren't you looking for me? Why don't you recognize me now? Yi Hao laughed loudly. Suddenly, his appearance changed and he became Xia Hao. Bastard, it's actually you. Seeing Yi Hao, Elder Bai was both angry and happy. Bastard, give me your life. Elder Bai turned his hand into a sword and slashed towards Yi Hao with a strong martial strength. Black Dragon Charge. Yi Hao did not waste his breath and directly used an earth-rank martial skill. How is this possible? Elder Bai clearly didn't expect Yi Hao to improve so quickly in such a short period of time. He wasn't much weaker than him. Boom. Immediately, the mountains and rivers beneath their feet shattered, and an intense sound rang out. Black Wind Tiger, protect them. Yi Hao told the Black Wind Tiger through telepathy the moment he attacked. The Black Wind Tiger immediately carried everyone on its back and quickly fled the battlefield. F***ck, is this still the boss? It's simply too amazing. Boss's strength is at least at the martial emperor level. Boss is too monstrous. His cultivation breakthrough seems to be easier than drinking water. When they saw Yi Hao's strength, all of them were so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths. In the past, Yi Hao's strength was already beyond their reach. This time, they had all gone out to train and had achieved a lot. Originally, they wanted to show off in front of Yi Hao. However, when they saw Yi Hao's speed of growth, all of them felt like giving up. Ha ha, you bastard, you finally came. You made me wait for so long. Sensing the battle, Bai Wu flew over in the blink of an eye. Seeing Yi Hao's cultivation, Bai Wu Sage was secretly shocked. How did this kid cultivate? How could he improve so quickly? If we don't get rid of this kid, he will be a disaster. Bai Wu Sage's killing intent soared to the sky. Go to hell. Bai Wu Sage's eyes darkened and he was about to attack Yi Hao. Then, the entire sky changed color under his killing intent. Boss, be careful. When the subordinates felt Bai Wu's aura, they couldn't hold on any longer. They fell to the ground and shouted with all their might. Even the black-winged tiger felt an invisible wall pressing down on him. He could only grit his teeth and endure. Luckily, the killing intent wasn't directed at him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a match for Bai Wu. Kid, who asked you to act tough? Now you're done for. When Bai Wu came over, Elder Bai immediately retreated to the side and sneered. Although Yi Hao had grown quickly, he was still an ant in front of Bai Wu. Zhang Fei, what are you waiting for? Why aren't you protecting him? When Yi Hao saw Bai Wu rushing over, he shouted calmly. You cowards, don't you dare hurt my master. Suddenly, the primordial ruins shone brightly and a figure rushed towards Bai Wu like a missile. Get lost. Bai Wu shouted coldly and threw a palm strike behind him. Petty tricks. Break for me. Zhang Fei looked at Bai Wu's attack with disdain and used his body to knock against it. This is an attack from a martial sage. How dare he use his body to block it? Is he courting death? This black-faced man is too arrogant. Humph, idiot. Elder Bai sneered when he saw Zhang Fei charging towards Bai Wu. Suddenly, a scream was heard. When the crowd looked over, they realized that the person who had screamed was King Bai Wu. Zhang Fei was holding the snake spear in his hand and he stabbed it into Bai Wu's arm. Wow! The crowd was in an uproar. How could this happen? How could this black-faced man be so strong? In just one move, he had destroyed the shoulder of a martial sage. Go to hell. King Bai Wu endured the pain and threw an elixir into his mouth to stabilize his injury. Then, he immediately took out his spiritual weapon. Kill. King Bai Wu used his mental strength to control a blood-red spear that was dozens of feet long, and he attacked Zhang Fei. Break for me. Zhang Fei shouted again. Everyone could only feel their eardrums buzzing. Greetings, my lord. At that moment, the crowd in the primordial ruins came out and greeted Yi Hao. Why is Brother Zhang so powerful? Did he hide his strength before? Yuan Guoping said in bewilderment when he saw Zhang Fei fighting Bai Wu. Everyone had been forced by Bai Wu to hide in the primordial ruins, and they did not dare to come out. Moreover, Zhang Fei was impatient and he wanted to rush out many times, but he was stopped by the crowd. Everyone knew that Zhang Fei was only a martial emperor. If he came out, he would die. However, Zhang Fei was obviously suppressing Bai Wu. If they had known that Zhang Fei was so strong, they would not have stopped him. There was no need to hide. Only Wu Song knew that Zhang Fei's sudden increase in strength had something to do with their lord. Xia Hao, I am really suspicious of your identity. How can an emperor of a principality have such powerful subordinates? Are you from a divine grade faction? Xie Chunyu looked at Yi Hao curiously. Chunyu, don't be rude. How dare you call our lord by his name? When Yuan Guoping heard Xie Chunyu's words, he immediately frowned and said to Xie Chunyu. However, his eyes were filled with love. Xie Chunyu lowered her head in embarrassment and pursed her lips unhappily. On the other hand, Yi Hao didn't hear Xie Chunyu at this moment because he suddenly felt unfocused. Logically speaking, Bai Wu was no match for Zhang Fei. Why did he have such a feeling? At that moment, the powerhouse sent by the sage emperor of the Holy Bishopric was rushing towards Yi Hao's location. Chapter 375. Ha! Zhang Fei shouted when he heard Yi Hao's order. Go to hell. Zhang Fei increased the strength in his hand and the martial arts power around him surged. There was even the sound of thunder in the air. The serpent's spear shattered the spear that was hundreds of feet long in the air. The blood-red spear instantly turned into thousands of light spots and was turned into nothingness by the powerful force. Poof! Bai Wu did not have time to react when his weapon was destroyed. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Not good. Bai Wu could feel Zhang Fei's murderous intent and his heart sank. Run! Bai Wu immediately had a thought. He was a martial sage and a king sage in the Bai Xing sacred dynasty. He could not die like this. He wanted to live forever, and he wanted to live forever. He did not want to die yet. He had not lived long enough. Let me go, and the Bai Xing sacred dynasty will remember your kindness, Bai Wu said as he ran away. Go to hell! Zhang Fei shouted, and the serpent spear in his hand flew toward Bai Wu's head. Poof! The serpent spear pierced through the back of Bai Wu's head. I will not let you go. When one reached the martial sage realm, one's soul could leave the body and be reborn. When Bai Wu's body was destroyed, a golden light flew out from his body, and he let out a hateful voice. Stop him! When Guoxuefu saw the golden light, she knew that it was Bai Wu's soul. She immediately shouted. If they let Bai Wu's soul escape, they would not be able to kill him. However, it was too late. Bai Wu had already run away. In fact, Bai Wu had already prepared for the worst. From the beginning, Bai Wu had focused all his strength on his soul. He used it to protect his soul and increase the speed of his escape. Even though Zhang Fei was a peak martial sage, he could not catch up with Bai Wu. Whoosh! Everyone looked at Bai Wu's soul anxiously. Suddenly, the array-engraved heart appeared in Yi Hao's eyes. A black light shot out from the array-engraved heart and turned into a cage that flew toward Bai Wu's soul. In the blink of an eye, the cage caught up with Bai Wu. What the hell is this? Feeling the aura behind him, Bai Wu couldn't help but shiver. You really want to kill us all? You'd better think this through. You'll have to bear the wrath of the Bixing dynasty and be hunted down by martial gods. Bai Wu had already sensed a dangerous aura from the black light. The aura threatened his soul. Bai Wu could only hope that the Bai Xing sacred dynasty and the martial gods would scare Yi Hao. However, Bai Wu didn't know that Yi Hao wouldn't leave any loose ends. Ever since Yi Hao had killed Bai Yi Hao and the Bai Xing dynasty had an irreconcilable enmity. Even if the Bai Xing holy dynasty let him go, he might not let them go. All of a sudden, the cage formed by the black light expanded and covered Bai Wu. The black cage emitted a dazzling black light that pierced through Bai Wu's soul. Bai Wu instantly let out a miserable cry. You evil bastard! I will not live under the same sky as you. You are a demon! Bai Wu cursed Yi Hao, trying to use this move to relieve his pain. But perhaps he had forgotten how many innocent people he had killed and tortured in the past. Those people had also cursed him like this before they died. Even the Wan Shou sect's outer sanctum was destroyed by him with a flip of his hand. They didn't even have a chance to beg for mercy. If it weren't for the fact that the Wan Shou sect retreated quickly, he would have slaughtered the entire Wan Shou sect. He was being tortured because he wanted to capture Yi Hao and torture Yi Hao. But what made him feel helpless was that Zhang Fei had appeared. I will kill you. Let me go if you dare. The Bai Xing dynasty will not let you go. It hurts. The black light kept on crossing Bai Wu's soul. Bai Wu's golden soul gradually appeared one by one. Black spots appeared and Bai Wu kept on screaming. This is... Yi Hao frowned. That black light was the heavenly Yin spirit. But the heavenly Yin spirit had not gained sentience yet. So, Yi Hao did not know what the heavenly Yin spirit was doing. But he had a bold guess. The heavenly Yin spirit was creating the heavenly Yin beast. But he was not sure. So, he could only look at the heavenly Yin spirit like everyone else. What was it trying to do? I can't accept this. Spare. I will. Kill. Spare me. At this moment, the black light was taking up more and more of Bai Wu's soul. On the other hand, the golden area was decreasing. Bai Wu started to talk incoherently. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the heavenly beast. Bai Wu's voice had completely disappeared. Bai Wu's soul had turned into a black human figure. He looked no different from a normal person. But from afar, he looked like a human figure. Attack! Yi Hao wanted to test the combat power of the heavenly beast. Yi Hao immediately ordered. Swoosh! Boom! Hearing Yi Hao's order, the heavenly beast immediately rushed out. The 10,000-meter tall mountain in front of the ancient ruins instantly turned into nothingness. So powerful! What is this thing? Shoo! You don't want to live anymore. It has the strength of a martial sage at least. Boss is too cool. How did he do it? So terrifying. I feel like he can kill me with just one look. When everyone saw the heavenly beast and its powerful strength, they were all filled with fear towards the heavenly beast. Check the information, Yi Hao immediately said to the system. He did not expect that the heavenly spirit would really be able to do it. It was actually able to transform Bai Wu's soul into a heavenly beast. This was a martial sage's soul. The heavenly beast that was transformed into a heavenly beast should not be too weak. Heavenly beast, strength of a second-level martial sage, can be named. What? When Yi Hao heard the information in his mind, he almost cried out. Wasn't this too powerful? Yi Hao simply did not dare to believe it. Bai Wu's strength was a second-level martial sage. Now that his soul had been transformed into a heavenly beast, it did not weaken in the slightest. One could imagine how terrifying the heavenly spirit was. No wonder every time a heavenly spirit appeared in the 10,000 countries continent, it would cause a sensation in the entire continent. This was because the heavenly spirit was simply too abnormal. If the heavenly spirit was allowed to develop freely, it was estimated that any plane would be destroyed by it. Yi Hao could now see that the heavenly beast created by the heavenly spirit needed a soul. Therefore, the heavenly beast would not stop killing. Master, I want to eat him. The devouring beast looked at Bai Wu's corpse greedily. No hurry. There were many people here, and Yi Hao naturally knew what the devouring beast wanted to do. The impact of the heavenly spirit turning Bai Wu into a heavenly beast was already strong enough. If everyone saw the devouring beast devouring Bai Wu's corpse, at that time, ding dong, congratulations to the host for killing a second-level martial sage. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 200 million experience points and 2 million soul points. Ding dong, congratulations to the host for killing a martial sage expert and successfully taking the first small step into the world. Congratulations to the host for doubling the rewards. Host, please draw the lottery. A wheel appeared in front of Yi Hao. On it were written 1 to 5, meaning 1 to 5 times. It must be 5 times, Yi Hao said excitedly. Chapter 376. Begin. Yi Hao said to the system with excitement in his eyes. A virtual turntable appeared in front of Yi Hao. Only he could see it and it started to spin rapidly. 5 times. 5 times. Yi Hao shouted anxiously in his heart. It's over. It can't be. Yi Hao suddenly felt a chill in his heart. He looked at the needle of the turntable. It was slowly moving past the 5 times region and its speed was getting slower and slower. Based on this speed, there was no hope for him to reach the 5 times region. 2 times it can't be. He looked at the needle moving past the 3 times region and to the 2 times region. Forget it. A mosquito's leg is still meat. It's better than nothing. Seeing that he was just 1 step away from reaching the 5 times region, Yi Hao slowly felt relieved. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the 5 times reward. The system's notification sounded. What? Yi Hao looked at it excitedly and realized that the needle had passed the 2 times region by a bit and was at the edge of the 5 times region. He was too lucky because there was only a slight difference between the 2 times and 5 times. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for doubling the reward. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 1 billion experience point. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 10 million soul point. Haha, it seems like I can upgrade Wusong to the martial sage realm. Adding his previous soul points, he now had 40 million soul point. 40 million soul points was just enough for him to break through from the martial emperor realm to the martial sage realm. Ding dong. Do you want to use 40 million soul points to upgrade Wusong's cultivation? Yes. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for reaching the peak of the martial sage realm. Wusong, who was standing at the side, looked at Zhang Fei enviously. Suddenly, he felt that his cultivation level had also started to soar. He was immediately overjoyed. As long as one was a martial artist, one would have a fanatical pursuit of cultivation level. He was no exception. When he saw Zhang Fei's cultivation level increase, he was a little jealous. Now, he finally had a breakthrough. Elder Bai's heart felt like it was on a roller coaster. He didn't know what to feel. He originally thought that once Bai Wu appeared, he would definitely suppress everyone. When the time came, he would capture Yi Hao and bring him back to beg for forgiveness. That way, his punishment would be reduced and he would suffer less. What he did not expect was that Bai Wu, who was so strong, would be killed by Zhang Fei. Even his soul could not escape. Elder Bai took out the teleportation talisman in a panic and wanted to escape. Swish. Suddenly, the teleportation talisman in his hand disappeared. Elder Bai raised his head in a panic and saw a black shadow in front of him, imprisoning the space around him. Elder Bai felt his legs trembling. He shouted instinctively, "Holy King!" Elder Bai, do you think I will let you use the same method twice? Yi Hao looked at Elder Bai mockingly. From the beginning, he had been on guard against Elder Bai. He was worried that Elder Bai would use his old tricks again. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Elder Bai tried his best not to look at Bai Wu's soul when his escape plan was seen through. He suppressed his fear and said firmly, even if Yi Hao let him go, he wouldn't be able to live after returning to the Bishing dynasty. He might as well die with dignity. Die? Yi Hao raised his eyebrows. Do you think it will be that easy? I haven't settled the score with you for what you did to the outer sect of the Wan Shou sect. Kill him! Skin him alive! Kill him! When they heard Yi Hao mention the outer sect of the Wan Shou sect, all the disciples of the Wan Shou sect shouted in anger. Their eyes were burning with hatred and they wanted to pierce through Elder Bai's body. You? What do you want? Elder Bai panicked when he saw the disciples shouting with hatred. If it was any other time, he would have killed all of them. He wanted to see if they could still shout. However, the black shadow was beside him, and he did not dare to move. Tear him apart! Yi Hao shouted. What? Elder Bai was stunned. He did not know who Yi Hao was talking to. Squeak, squeak, squeak. When the guards heard the familiar voice, they shuddered. Why aren't you saving me? Bai Wu suddenly saw the Imperial Guards rushing over. It was as if he saw the hope of survival. Elder Bai? As the Imperial Guards had just arrived, they did not see how Bai Wu was killed. Elder Bai was Bai Yi's Imperial Guard. If Elder Bai was here, Bai Yi would be here too. Bai Yi was the prince of the Bai Xing dynasty. However, none of them made a move because Yi Hao was their leader now. Squeak! Suddenly there was a scream. A sky-devouring rat opened its mouth and pounced at Elder Bai. You are asking for death. When Elder Bai saw a big rat pouncing at him, he wanted to fight back. Break! Yi Hao shouted. The black shadow immediately attacked and broke Elder Bai's arm. Hiss! Elder Bai took a deep breath. Squeak! The sky-devouring rat bit Elder Bai's shoulder. Rip! The sky-devouring rat bit off Elder Bai's shoulder. Go! Yi Hao felt that it was not enough. He let out another dozen sky-devouring rat. Without Yi Hao's order, the dozen sky-devouring rats pounced at Elder Bai as if they had seen a delicious meal. "Brat, you're too vicious!" Elder Bai screamed. Only now did he know that death was a luxury. This kind of torture, waiting for death, was truly torturous. "Bite him to death, bite him to death, bite him to death! Bite him with all your might, bite his flesh, drink his blood." Seeing the sky-devouring rats biting Elder Bai, no one pitied him. They all shouted to vent their anger. "You bunch of ants, wait for the wrath of the Bai Xing dynasty!" Elder Bai screamed for the last time. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for killing an 8th Order martial emperor. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 8 million experience points and 800,000 soul points. In the next few days, Yi Hao set the location of the Thousand Beasts sect at the ancient ruins. Yuan Guopeng successfully became the sect master of the Thousand Beasts sect. Everyone in the Thousand Beasts sect submitted to Yi Hao. As a precaution, Yi Hao left Wu Song to guard the Thousand Beasts sect. Yi Hao rushed towards the direction of the Beast Monster sect. At the same time, Yi Hao brought Murong Bai away. As for I Ching and Wu Hei, Yi Hao had already placed them in the Thousand Beasts sect. He believed that with the resources of the Thousand Beasts sect, the two of them would definitely develop well. "Boss, you must come back to see us," many of the underlings said reluctantly. Some of them even had tears in their eyes. "Let's go." Yi Hao nodded and patted the Black Wind Tiger's body. The Black Wind Tiger immediately soared into the sky. "Brother Wu Song, I want to quickly develop the Thousand Beasts sect and help the Lord." Seeing the Black Wind Tiger fly away like a black lightning, Yuan Guopeng said to Wu Song, who was beside him. Yuan Guopeng knew of Yi Hao's ambition, and with his cultivation, he obviously couldn't keep up with Yi Hao's footstep. But to fight for the world, one needed not only individual strength, but also manpower. Yuan Guopeng wanted to quickly strengthen the Thousand Beasts sect and create a Tiger Wolf army for Yi Hao. Moreover, although the outer sect of the Thousand Beasts sect was destroyed, it didn't hurt the foundation. Moreover, cultivating in the ancient ruins allowed the cultivation of many disciples to advance by leaps and bounds. Now that there was Wu Song, a martial sage expert, in charge, the current Thousand Beasts sect was definitely stronger than before. Moreover, it wasn't just one level stronger. "Alright, you plan, I'll be the vanguard." Yuan Guopeng's words were exactly what Wu Song wanted. He didn't want to stay here and guard a bunch of disciples. He also wanted to make a career for himself. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of the cultivation that the Lord had raised for him? "Let's start with the Flying Beast sect." Yuan Guopeng thought for a moment. He decided to make a move on the closest honorable force, the Flying Beast sect. Chapter 377. After hearing Yuan Guopeng's introduction, Wu Song didn't object and nodded in agreement. "Okay, let's start with him." To him, as long as he could help his master, he was willing to do anything. Furthermore, he was itching to find an expert to test out his strength. Although he didn't care about the Flying Beast sect, he knew that the 10,000 Beast sect wouldn't be able to eat until they were fat. He couldn't rush this. As for the Beast Monster sect, it was already close to the competition and the entire sect was dead silent. This was because the Spirit Pill sect sent news that they had found 3 Saint class factions as judges, and these 3 factions were all biased towards the Spirit Pill sect. The Spirit Pill sect alone had obtained the support of 3 Saint class factions. This was a huge blow to the already weak Beast Monster sect. "Sect leader, the competition is about to start. I think that the master is most likely dead. Otherwise, why hasn't he appeared yet? What do we do now?" Wang Chong asked, disheartened. "Don't talk nonsense, we have to believe that the master is safe." Sun Ba's face sank as he shouted at Wang Chong. "Subordinate knows his mistake." Wang Chong immediately said, "I was just too anxious. We have no choice but to wait for the Spirit Pill sect to take us in." This matter. Tell your sect leader to come out, I have something to talk to him about. Sun Ba was about to speak when a voice exploded in the air above the beast monster sect. Who dares to be so arrogant in front of my beast monster sect? Hearing that voice, Wang Chong was already in a bad mood and now he was even more annoyed. This person doesn't have good intentions, follow me out to take a look. Hearing the strength of the voice, Sun Ba was worried that someone was here to cause trouble and became vigilant. The group of elders immediately followed behind Sun Ba and flew out. At this moment, at the entrance of the beast monster sect, a young man with a thick body and an honest face was squatting at the entrance of the beast monster sect. He was holding the leg of an unknown demon beast and was roasting it above the fire. And, seeing the actions of the youth, Wang Chong was even more furious. Preposterous, this is the holy land of the beast monster sect. Where do you think this is? You actually dare to do such a thing here? Many elders were furious as well. After all, this was the entrance of the beast monster sect, and this was the face of the beast monster sect. For this youth to roast something at the entrance of the beast monster sect, this was a slap to the face of the beast monster sect. You're still immortal? You've gone too far. Tell me, did the spiritual medicine sect send you here? Wang Chong's eyes as he realized that he was just an ordinary person, this made him even more furious. Wang Chong originally wanted to attack the honest youth, but upon seeing that he was an ordinary person and that he was sent by the Spirit Herbarium sect, Wang Chong lost all interest in attacking him and coldly asked, "You're not from the spiritual medicine sect?" Hearing the young man's vulgar words, Wang Chong frowned. Then who are you? Teat. After biting, the youth was unhappy and muttered, "That's weird, why can't I roast it like boss?" Bah! The honest-looking youth spat out the beast meat in his mouth and then threw the magical beast leg in his hand to the side. This seems to be the leg of a grade 6 beast, the tiger-driving beast. An elder said with a weird expression as he looked at the leg the youth threw in front of him. What? Everyone's expression changed when they heard the elder's words. A class 6 magical beast, that was equivalent to a martial saint. Wang Chong didn't believe it. Did you see wrongly? He is just an ordinary person, how can he have the leg of a tiger-driving beast? Moreover, he just threw it away. That is a heavenly treasure. The beast itself contained energy and was a great source of nourishment for cultivators. Of course, the higher the grade of the beast, the more energy it contained. It wasn't that they hadn't eaten a grade 6 beast before, but every time, all the elders would go out for it. Every time they obtained a beast's body, they would treat it as a treasure. They couldn't bear to waste the slightest bit of it, so they would eat it and slowly refine it. How could they be like the youth, roasting an entire leg and then throwing it away because it wasn't tasty enough? Not to mention Wang Chong, even Sun Ba couldn't remain calm. If not for the sect master's face, he would have picked up the beast's leg. However, Sun Ba's eyes lit up. He asked the youth, "Let me ask you, where did you pick up this beast's leg?" The youth shook his head like a rattledrum and said, "I didn't pick it up, I killed it myself." "What? You killed it?" Everyone was stunned. Then, they burst into laughter. An ordinary person could kill a grade 6 beast. If this wasn't a fool's dream, what could it be? If an ordinary person could kill a grade 6 beast, why would they still need cultivators? Would they still need to cultivate so desperately? You should return to where you came from. Sun Ba smiled and shook his head. He thought that the youth was a fool, so he couldn't be bothered to argue with him. "No, I have an agreement with my boss. He told me to find him." The youth shook his head once more. "Your boss, Xiao. Sun Ba wanted to speak, but he was interrupted by the sound of something tearing through the air. A few people landed in front of the beast monster sect. Seeing them, the faces of the beast monster sect members turned ugly. Cheng Ziyuan greets fellow sect members. One of them cupped his fists and said with a smile, There was no respect on his face. Instead, it was filled with provocation. Seeing Qing Ziyuan's arrogant expression, Wang Chong immediately stood out and shouted, "Preposterous, the competition hasn't started yet. Who are your fellow sect members? How dare you be so arrogant in front of our sect master?" Logically speaking, Qing Ziyuan's status wasn't high among the Spirit Pill sect elders. He should have bowed when he saw Sun Ba. From the looks of it, he didn't have any respect for the beast monster sect. He looked at Sun Ba with disdain. Qing Ziyuan looked at Wang Chong with disdain. Although his cultivation wasn't as high as Wang Chong's, he wasn't afraid of Wang Chong. He coldly smiled and said, "Is there a need for this competition? I think it's just a formality. Moreover, the sect master sent me here to watch over you and prevent you from escaping." Qing Ziyuan put on an expression that said, "Your beast monster sect is already in my pocket. Preposterous, this is too much." The beast monster sect members felt like their hearts were about to explode from anger. The competition hadn't started yet and the Spirit Pill sect was already so arrogant, bullying them. If the beast monster sect lost, what kind of life would the beast monster sect have? The entire beast monster sect would probably be suppressed by the Spirit Pill sect disciples. They might even become the servants of the Spirit Pill sect disciples. Qing Ziyuan, your words are a little too much. Sun Ba's eyes were filled with anger. At the same time, killing intent was emitted from his body. Seeing the killing intent from Sun Ba, Qing Ziyuan's heart trembled. He had long heard of Sun Ba's temper. His eyes turned and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. He chuckled and said, "Elder son, there's no need to be angry. This is the sect master's intention. No matter what, we're from the same sect." "What? You're threatening me?" Hearing Qing Ziyuan's words, Sun Ba's killing intent soared. Sun Ba's killing intent intensified as he said in a deep voice, "The competition hasn't started yet. Who gave you the guts to call me elder son?" Chapter 378. Hey, don't quarrel. I want to ask if my boss is here or not. The honest-looking young man scratched his head and interrupted the crowd. "Who are you?" Qing Ziyuan turned his head and looked at the honest youth. When he realized that the honest youth was actually an ordinary person, he couldn't help but frown as disgust flashed in his eyes. "I don't want to talk to you. Please move aside." The honest youth immediately saw the disgust in Qing Ziyuan's eyes. The honest youth didn't want to bother with Qing Ziyuan and walked around him. "You are courting death." For the first time, he was ignored by a mortal that he looked down on the most. Qing Ziyuan immediately felt that his face was gone. "Qing Ziyuan, this is my territory. If you dare to attack, don't blame me for being impolite. Besides, he's just an ordinary person. There's no need for you to make such a big fuss." Seeing that Qing Ziyuan wanted to attack the honest youth, Sun Ba immediately stopped him. "Why? Sect Master's son, do you know this person?" Qing Ziyuan raised his eyebrows and looked at Sun Ba. "I don't know him," Sun Ba said honestly. "Since you don't know him, Sect Master's son shouldn't be a busybody." With that said, Qing Ziyuan didn't wait for anyone to react and directly grabbed the honest youth's neck. "Stop!" Sun Ba didn't expect Qing Ziyuan to be so domineering, attacking as soon as he said so. "Humph!" Qing Ziyuan snorted coldly as his eyes flashed with ridicule. He thought to himself that since I can't attack you, I'll kill an ordinary person to reduce your prestige. Anyway, you can't do anything to me for an ordinary person. Actually, Qing Ziyuan was also frightened by Sun Ba just now. Therefore, he wanted to kill the honest youth to vent his anger and regain some face. The honest youth looked at Qing Ziyuan and his face immediately showed unhappiness. He warned, "Don't attack me or the consequences will be serious." "Serious your ass." Qing Ziyuan didn't care about the honest youth at all. He was just an ordinary mortal. He could easily crush him to death, as easily as crushing an ant. Now, a mortal actually dared to threaten him. There was something wrong with his brain. So what if I attack you? Trash. And Qing Ziyuan grabbed the young man's neck and taunted him. Qing Ziyuan, release him for this sect master. Under the leadership of Sun Ba, all the elders of the beast monster sect immediately surrounded Qing Ziyuan. The people Qing Ziyuan had brought with him immediately surrounded Qing Ziyuan to protect him. I'm not letting go. What are you going to do about it? Qing Ziyuan had the Spirit Pill sect as his backer, so he was unyielding. You forced me to do this. The honest-looking young man lowered his head and saw the hand on his neck. He immediately looked at Qing Ziyuan angrily and said in a cold tone, "Forcing you." Just as Qing Ziyuan was about to speak, he felt a violent impact on his abdomen. Unable to hold on, Qing Ziyuan was sent flying. A person standing behind Qing Ziyuan was also sent flying by the impact. How is this possible? Everyone was shocked when they saw that it was Qing Ziyuan who was sent flying. No matter how weak this Qing Ziyuan was, he was still a martial saint. Could it be that he couldn't even take a punch from an ordinary person? If they didn't see Qing Ziyuan fly out with their own eyes, everyone would have suspected that the two of them were acting. Humph, I already warned you. Who told you not to listen? The honest-looking young man humphed and retracted his fist. Aunt, I'll kill you. Feeling the intense pain in his abdomen, Qing Ziyuan flew into a rage and crawled up from the ground. Qing Ziyuan's face was covered in dust. However, no matter how he looked at it, the honest-looking young man was just an ordinary person. How could he have sent him flying? After thinking for a moment, Qing Ziyuan felt that it was because he didn't use his martial Dao power and the honest-looking young man's strength was slightly greater. That was why he suffered a loss. Thinking of this, Qing Ziyuan immediately circulated his martial Dao power and formed a defense around his body. At the same time, he punched towards the honest-looking young man's head. You've angered me. The honest-looking young man raised his head and looked at Qing Ziyuan. His tone was filled with anger. Go to hell. Qing Ziyuan looked at the honest-looking young man, who had opened his door wide. Qing Ziyuan attacked from above, aiming for the young man's head. The honest-looking young man waved his arm and blocked Qing Ziyuan's fist. At the same time, he grabbed one of Qing Ziyuan's legs. Qing Ziyuan panicked and immediately used his other leg to circulate his martial Dao power. With a piercing sound, he kicked towards the honest-looking young man's chest. With just this kick, even if a 10,000 gene heavy iron plate was kicked, it would leave a large hole. However, the honest-looking young man didn't panic. He stretched out his other hand and grabbed Qing Ziyuan's kicking leg. How is this possible? Qing Ziyuan immediately panicked. Both of his legs were in the hands of the honest-looking young man. Qing Ziyuan couldn't help but anxiously shout, Quickly let go of me. I told you not to provoke me. It's too late now. Rip. Without waiting for Qing Ziyuan to speak, the honest-looking young man directly tore Qing Ziyuan into two. Blood splattered all over the honest-looking young man's body. Everyone was stunned by the scene in front of them, because from the beginning to the end, no one had felt a trace of martial Dao power from the young man's body. Everyone thought that the honest-looking young man was just an ordinary person. But this ordinary person that everyone looked down on actually tore apart the martial saint Qing Ziyuan with his bare hands. This was simply a fantasy story, but it really happened in front of their eyes. Elder Qing, Elder Qing. Seeing Qing Ziyuan being torn in two, the people that Qing Ziyuan brought immediately lost their heads out of fear and shouted loudly. But at this moment, the honest-looking young man's body was covered in blood. Although he looked like an ordinary person and didn't have a trace of martial Dao power, his appearance was extremely frightening. At this moment, no one dared to approach the honest-looking young man. Your beast monster sect, just you wait. Just wait for my spiritual medicine sect to punish you. The spiritual medicine sect people hurriedly ran away while not forgetting to warn. Seeing that the spiritual medicine sect people wanted to escape, Wang Chong immediately stopped them. Don't go, this person isn't from my beast monster sect. Because if he let these people go back to the spiritual medicine sect and add fuel to the fire in front of Zhao Xiong, although it wouldn't cause a calamity to the beast monster sect, it would definitely not be easy. In any case, Elder Qing died in your beast monster sect. When the time comes, you can personally explain it. The spiritual medicine sect people shouted as they ran away. Wang Chong's face darkened. Looking at the spiritual medicine sect people who only cared about escaping, he ordered the elders, "Capture these people for me, don't let a single one of them escape." "Good, your beast monster sect really wants to silence them." Hearing Wang Chong's order, all the elders immediately rushed into the sky. The spiritual medicine sect people panicked even more. "Stop!" Sun Ba suddenly shouted coldly. Hearing Sun Ba's words, all the elders immediately stopped and looked at Sun Ba. "Sect Master, if we let these people go, there will be endless trouble in the future," Wang Chong said anxiously. "If we kill them, it will be even harder to explain." Sun Ba sighed. But, seeing that the spiritual medicine sect people had already escaped, Wang Chong was extremely anxious. But he had to listen to Sun Ba's words. Wang Chong only wanted to persuade Sun Ba to change his mind. "It's fine, at most, I will personally explain it to him." AI. Wang Chong sighed deeply. The spiritual medicine sect originally wanted to find trouble with the beast monster sect. Now that an elder of the spiritual medicine sect had died in the beast monster sect, the spiritual medicine sect would definitely make a big fuss. Chapter 379. After the people from the spirit medicine sect had fled far away, everyone looked at the honest youth in shock. Looking at the honest youth, everyone was curious and fearful. What kind of monster was this? Even a martial saint expert could be torn in half with his hand. Even if he was born with godly strength, he couldn't be so powerful. At this moment, everyone no longer doubted the honest youth's words. With his strength, killing a Class 6 magical beast was easy. "Sect leader, I think we should leave this kid here first. At least we can give the spirit medicine sect an explanation." Looking at the honest youth squatting on the ground and fiddling with the fire, Wang Chong said softly, "Let me ask him." Sun Ba looked at the honest youth for a moment before waving his hand at Wang Chong and walking toward him. "Young man, you said you came to find your boss. Who is your boss? Is he from the beast monster sect?" Sun Ba asked the honest youth. The honest youth raised his head and shook it. "I don't know. I only know that my boss told me to come to the beast monster sect half a year later to find him." "Do you know your boss's name?" Sun Ba asked patiently. The youth thought for a moment before shaking his head again. Sun Ba was completely speechless this time. He didn't know anything and came to the beast monster sect to find his boss. What did he think the beast monster sect was? But when he thought about how the youth easily tore Qing Ziyuan in half without using any martial strength, Sun Ba couldn't help but ask curiously, "May I ask what your strength is?" The honest youth shook his head again. He really didn't know what his strength was. He only knew that he was very strong, but he had never cultivated before. "Sect leader, I think he's just a fool. You won't be able to get anything out of him." Wang Chong walked in front of Sun Ba and looked at the honest youth with disdain. The honest youth suddenly stood up and said angrily, "You're the fool, I'm not." The honest youth's words were muffled, but thinking about the scene just now, no one dared to provoke him. "You? Who are you calling a fool?" Wang Chong didn't expect the honest youth to retort. But he didn't dare to attack the honest youth because he didn't want to be torn in half. Dying like that would be too humiliating. "Ah!" Sun Ba suddenly laughed at Wang Chong's deflated appearance, and the other elders couldn't help but laugh as well. "You'd better leave quickly." After laughing for a long time, Sun Ba stopped laughing and said to the honest young man. However, this was the first time in a few months that he had laughed so happily. Although he didn't know the young man's background and strength, he was adorable and honest. If he left the young man behind, the Spirit Potion sect would never let him off the hook. Rather than that, he might as well let him leave as soon as possible. I'm not leaving. I want to wait here for boss. The simple and honest young man shook his head. And I can help you beat up those people just now. This. Sun Ba was instantly tempted. If he recruited this expert into the beast monster sect, he would definitely be an expert. After all, this was someone who had torn apart a marshal exalted with his bare hands. Even he did not know if he would be able to deal with him. After all, he couldn't tell how strong the honest young man was. Sect Master, why don't we keep him here? Wang Chong was actually thinking that at the very last moment, he could just hand the honest-looking youth over to the spirit medicine sect. Let them fight among themselves. It wasn't that he was being unkind, but that he was only thinking about the beast monster sect. The beast monster sect couldn't be eaten by the spirit medicine sect because of this unknown young man. Not even their bones would be left behind. All right then. I hope that you won't look down on our beast monster sect. Seeing that Wang Chong had agreed, Sun Ba also agreed. Sun Ba had just agreed. At this moment, the honest-looking youth seemed to have thought of something and suddenly turned around and ran. Sun Ba and Wang Chong were both confused. They thought that this young man was afraid and ran away. After running for a while, the honest-looking youth was afraid that everyone would misunderstand, so he suddenly turned around and shouted with a smile, "Wait for me! Rumble! Rumble!" After a while, just as everyone was waiting anxiously, the earth shook violently. Suddenly, an earth-shaking sound rang out from the ground. Everyone could clearly feel that the ground was trembling. "Everyone, be careful! Prepare for battle!" Sun Ba shouted warily. All the elders were on high alert as they looked in the direction of the voice. Woo! Suddenly, the sound of a bird could be heard. Hearing the sound of the bird, an elder suddenly shouted, "It's a rank 6 demon beast, flame bird." Everyone saw the flame bird rushing towards them, and Wang Chong immediately shouted, "Prepare for battle." "Wait, don't be nervous, it's me." The honest-looking youth's voice rang out. Only then did everyone see that there was a person below the 10-meter-long flame bird. It was the honest-looking youth. This kid, how did he attract the flame bird? Everyone panicked. This kid really wasn't someone who was idle. "Kid, bring the flame bird away from the beast monster sect." An elder immediately shouted. The flame bird was around rank 6 or 7. If they wanted to deal with the flame bird, the beast monster sect would have to pay a heavy price. "Don't be afraid, I've already caught the bird." The honest-looking youth heard the elder's panicked tone and immediately replied with a smile. "What?" Everyone was stunned. Only when the honest-looking youth walked over did they see it clearly. At this moment, the 2 claws of the flame bird were being held by the youth. The flame bird was flapping its wings and frantically struggling. Actually, the flame bird had a sullen expression. It was sleeping, and this honest-looking youth had pounced on it and grabbed its claws. When it saw the youth, the flame bird had a look of disdain. But then it was stunned because it found that no matter how it struggled, it couldn't break free from the youth's claws. "I'll wait for the boss here. I won't eat and drink for free. In the future, I'll catch demon beasts for you every day. I hope you don't mind." The honest-looking youth walked in front of everyone and said. Looking at the frantically struggling flame bird, everyone nervously looked at the flame bird and still hadn't come back to their senses. They were afraid that the youth would accidentally let the flame bird break free. This was a rank 6 demon beast. Of everyone present, Sun Ba was the strongest. But because the flame bird could fly, Sun Ba wasn't its match. As soon as the youth finished speaking, he smashed the flame bird's head into the ground. The youth jumped and sat on the head of the flame bird as he shouted, "Ha! Pung! The flame bird's head was smashed and even the demon beast's core was revealed. Quick, bring over the tools. Wang Chong immediately ordered the elders. The blood essence of a rank 6 demon beast was a treasure to them. How could they waste it? When everyone heard Wang Chong's words, they recovered from their shock. The elders immediately carried the corpse of the flame bird back to the beast monster sect, as if they had picked up a treasure. What kind of monster is this? Sun Ba clicked his tongue in his heart. To be able to catch the flame bird so easily and smash it to death with a single punch. Sun Ba believed that he definitely couldn't do that. Didn't that mean that the honest-looking youth didn't have any martial arts strength at all? He was much stronger than him, the sect master who cultivated day and night? Could it be that he was born with divine strength? Sun Ba looked at the honest-looking youth and thought, how could there be someone born with divine strength that can compare to a martial saint? But even if he was born with divine strength, there was no need to be so abnormal. He had never heard of anyone surpassing the martial saint realm. Chapter 380. Sect Master. Sect Master. Something bad has happened. As soon as the group of people from the spirit medicine sect returned to the sect, they shouted towards the main hall in panic. Looking at the group of people with ashen faces, the spirit medicine sect's sect master, Zhao Xiong, couldn't help but frown. A trace of dissatisfaction appeared on his face. Main hall, sacred ground, all of you are shouting. What is this? We know our mistake. Seeing Zhao Xiong's displeased expression, the few of them immediately knelt on the ground. Didn't I tell you to go to the beast monster sect? Why are you back? And where's Qing Ziyuan? Zhao Xiong scanned the crowd and didn't find Qing Ziyuan, so he asked in puzzlement. Reporting to sect master, we did go to the beast monster sect, but the beast monster sect was too daring and killed elder Qing Ziyuan. One of them hurriedly replied. Impudent! Zhao Xiong's face was filled with anger. The aura of Emperor Wu erupted from his body and collided with the few of them. They couldn't even resist and were sent flying. Bang bang bang! The few of them fell to the ground and hurriedly got up. They knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. Sect Master, please spare our lives. Seeing the few of them begging for mercy, although Zhao Xiong's face was still filled with anger, he still withdrew his aura. Get up, tell me the details. Seeing their eyes darting around, Zhao Xiong didn't forget to remind them, you must report the truth. If there is a mistake, you know the consequences. Yes. The few of them originally wanted to add fuel to the fire, but when they saw the anger on Zhao Xiong's face, they knew that he was looking at them. They didn't dare to hide anything, so they told him everything that had happened. Impudent, a person without martial arts can kill a martial honorable. Do you think this sect master is a 3-year-old child? After listening to their narration, Zhao Xiong clearly didn't believe their words. In this world where martial artists were respected, martial arts was essential. The stronger one was, the stronger the martial arts one could control. And mortals didn't have martial arts, this was something everyone knew. Moreover, because mortals didn't have martial arts, in the eyes of martial artists, mortals were ants. Because even the weakest martial artist could easily crush dozens of mortals. And how could a mortal kill a martial honorable? It was like an ant trying to topple an elephant. That was simply unrealistic. Sect leader, everything we said is true. That fool really doesn't have any martial power. When he attacked Elder Qing Ziyuan, there wasn't the slightest bit of martial power fluctuation from his body. Everyone was worried that Zhao Xiong wouldn't believe them and hurriedly said. Zhao Xiong narrowed his eyes and looked at everyone. Looking at everyone's expressions, it didn't seem like they were lying. However, without the power of martial arts, he was just an ordinary person. How could an ordinary person kill a martial saint? This was simply unheard of. Is he an expert that beast monster sect invited? Zhao Xiong thought about it suspiciously as that was the only explanation. However, How powerful must that person be to be able to kill a martial saint without using martial power? That person must be at least a martial emperor. The more Zhao Xiong thought about it, the more shocked he was. If Beast Monster Sect invited a martial emperor expert, that was something he wasn't willing to see. Quickly send an invitation to Mu Shengzhen and ask them to send a few martial emperors to watch the competition. Zhao Xiong immediately instructed everyone. Now that Mu Shengzhen had become his backer, it didn't matter if that young man was invited by Beast Monster Sect or not. He had to be on guard. Yes, I will do it now. Hearing that the sect leader was going to invite martial emperors, everyone couldn't help but sigh in relief. One of them immediately ran down. Oh right, when will Gudanzin and Bai Xing Holy Dynasty's envoys arrive? Zhao Xiong immediately asked. According to the time, it should be about time. Someone calculated the time and said, when the time comes, we must receive them well. These envoys notified us first. They probably want to show their friendliness to us. We must seize this opportunity. Zhao Xiong's eyes were burning as he said. When he thought about the three sacred factions gathering at Spirit Medicine Sect and witnessing Spirit Medicine Sect's return to glory, he felt incomparably excited. Sometimes, Zhao Xiong wondered if the old ancestor of Pill Sect were all fools. Why didn't they hug Gudanzin's thigh? Why did they have to separate from Gudanzin? In his opinion, if Pill Sect hadn't separated from Gudanzin, they wouldn't have fallen to their current state. In his opinion, this was all the old ancestors' fault. Since it was the old ancestors' fault, he should make up for it. He must annex Beast Monster Sect and restore Pill Sect's prestige. However, he didn't think about it. Gudanzin was at its peak. Why would Pill Sect risk angering Gudanzin and separate from Gudanzin? However, he didn't think about these reasons at all. He only thought about swallowing Beast Monster Sect and establishing Pill Sect. Then, he would be the hero of Pill Sect and would be recorded in the history of Pill Sect for future generations to admire for tens of thousands of years. Moreover, he had prepared for this competition for too long. The disciples participating in the competition were all martial saints, and the strongest had reached the peak of martial saint realm. Just this disciple alone had cost him countless spirit pills and countless of his blood and sweat. Not to mention anything else, just the strongest disciple's strength was probably comparable to Sun Ba's. Moreover, the people participating in the alchemy competition weren't weak either. They were all rank 5 alchemists. These alchemists were probably elders in the Beast Monster Sect. It could be said that he was filled with confidence in the competition. He wanted to laugh as Sun Ba handed Beast Monster Sect over to him and kneel at his feet, begging for mercy and admitting defeat. Yi Hao, where are we going now? Are we going to Beast Monster Sect or Spirit Medicine Sect? The two women sat on the black wind tiger, each holding a bottle of cola in their hands. Mu Qingyu stretched and asked, let's go to Spirit Medicine Sect first. Because the location of the competition was set at Spirit Medicine Sect, Yi Hao didn't want to waste time. We'll listen to you, the two women said in unison. A day later, a long line formed at the entrance of Spirit Medicine Sect. Everyone was looking into the distance in anticipation. In the distance, a dark cloud could be seen floating towards Spirit Medicine Sect. Suddenly, the dark cloud turned into a large black tiger and landed. A man and two women jumped down from the black tiger. Following that, the sound of air being torn apart rang out. It was more than 100 Imperial Guards. The Imperial Guards stood behind Yi Hao and bowed to Yi Hao. We respectfully welcome the envoy of Bai Xing Dynasty and the envoy of Gudanzin. Under Zhao Xiong's lead, the Spirit Medicine Sect immediately bowed respectfully to Yi Hao. Yi Hao looked at the crowd and nodded gently. He wondered if Zhao Xiong would still bow to him so respectfully if he knew that he had come to Spirit Medicine Sect to help Beast Monster Sect. It would be very good if he didn't chase him out. He wouldn't be fawning over him like he was now. I don't know who is the envoy of Baixing dynasty and who is the envoy of Gudanzan. Zhao Xiong looked at the two women and one man in front of the imperial guards and was secretly surprised. He didn't expect the envoy to be so young, but he still asked respectfully. This is our Commander Yi and this is Miss Guo from Gudanzan. One of the imperial guards immediately stepped forward and introduced them. Commander Yi? Zhao Xiong didn't have any contact with the Baixing dynasty, so he didn't know if the Baixing dynasty had a commander. However, looking at their attire, no one would be so bold as to pretend to be the imperial guards of a sacred faction. When he heard Miss Guo, his heart skipped a beat. The sect leader of Gudanzan is surnamed Guo. Could she be the daughter of the sect leader of Gudanzan? Greetings, Commander Yi and Miss Guo. Please enter the sect to rest. Chapter 381. Yi Hao's heart skipped a beat when he heard the voice. He was all too familiar with that voice. Then, his eyes burned with rage. Enemies are bound to meet. Yi Hao sneered in his heart. Yi Hao, what's wrong? Guo Xuefu and Mu Qingyu asked when they noticed the change in Yi Hao's expression. Go to hell. Yi Hao ignored the two girls. He took out his bloody scars and charged in the direction of the voice like a missile. Earth-devouring cleave. While everyone was still in a daze, Yi Hao shouted in the sky. Then, the martial power in the area started to churn violently. A black ray of light that was dozens of meters long appeared in the sky, as though it was going to devour everything. Many of the spirit herbalism sect disciples, whose cultivation bases were too low, were scared silly when they saw what was happening. They stood rooted to the ground. Commander Guo, I'm on your side. Please stop. The energy that erupted from Yi Hao's body made even Zhao Xiong tremble in fear. He was now convinced that Yi Hao was from the Bishing sacred dynasty. If he wasn't from a saint-grade faction, how could he be so strong at such a young age? However, he didn't understand why Yi Hao would suddenly attack him. Logically speaking, the Bishing sacred dynasty and the Mu Shengzhen didn't have any deep grudges. Zhao Xiong shouted anxiously when he thought that there might be some misunderstanding. That was because, if these two powers got into a fight in the Spirit Herbarium sect's territory, then the Spirit Herbarium sect would be the one to suffer. Who knows, maybe even the Spirit Herbarium sect would be finished. Who are you? Why are you attacking me? Mu Lei asked angrily as he looked at the young man who was charging towards him like a lunatic without distinguishing between right and wrong. Just now, he had painstakingly blocked Yi Hao's attack, but his body had also suffered quite a few injuries. At this moment, his internal organs were still in turmoil. Mu Lei looked at Yi Hao carefully and realized that he didn't know this young man. He didn't understand why this young man would hate him so much. Mu Lei could clearly feel Yi Hao's intense hatred towards him, as well as his murderous intent. But no matter how hard she searched her memories, she had never seen Yi Hao before. Do you remember some time ago when a divine weapon was born? You struck out a palm in the air and attacked a martial spirit realm cultivator? Yi Hao asked coldly. Divine weapon? Is there such a thing? Mu Lei was stunned. I've been cultivating for the past year. I've never left Mu Shengzhen. Yi Hao's attack paused. Did I recognize the wrong person? That can't be. I definitely can't forget this voice. Haha. Kid, you're still too inexperienced. Everyone, follow me and kill this dog. Mu Lei saw that Yi Hao's attack had stopped and immediately retreated. He shouted at the Mu Shengzhen disciples. Kid, how dare you provoke our Mu Shengzhen? I'll let you know how to write the word death. A fourth-order martial emperor attacked Yi Hao's chest. Haha, you're courting death. Yi Hao sneered. Although he seemed to have stopped attacking, he had been on guard all along. Butterfly shadow steps. Earth-devouring slash. Yi Hao shouted twice and rushed towards the fourth-order martial emperor. Ha ha, die. The Fourth Order Martial Emperor stabbed his sword into Yi Hao's chest and laughed complacently. Suddenly, he froze. He had clearly stabbed Yi Hao, but Yi Hao had suddenly disappeared. Not good, it's an illusion. Boom! A black wave rushed towards him and swallowed his body. He didn't even have time to react. Ding dong, congratulations to host for killing a Fourth Order Martial Emperor. Congratulations to host for obtaining 4 million experience points. Congratulations to host for obtaining 400,000 soul points. What a fast speed! Everyone was shocked. His speed was so fast that he could create an illusion. One could only imagine how terrifying his speed was. Who is he? What does he have to do with that trash? Mu Lei still couldn't imagine that Yi Hao was the person he had slapped. But he didn't dare to think that way. How long had it been? Normally, a martial spirit realm cultivator wouldn't be able to reach the martial emperor realm even if he was riding on a rocket. You're the only one left. Go to hell. The highest cultivation in the group was only a 6th Order martial emperor. In the blink of an eye, all of Mu Shengzhen's disciples were killed by Yi Hao. Yi Hao held the blood-scarred dual blades and closed in on Mu Lei. Yi Hao recalled the time when he was killed by Mu Zheng for no reason. Yi Hao swore that he would take revenge and destroy Mu Shengzhen. Let's talk. Mu Lei panicked. He didn't expect Yi Hao to be so strong. He immediately took half a step back. Black Dragon Charge! Roar! A faint sound of a dragon's roar could be heard. A black dragon flew out from Yi Hao's bloody-scarred dual blades and charged towards Mu Lei. Mu Lei's body was hit by the black dragon and his vitality dissipated instantly. Before he died, he shouted at Yi Hao with hatred, "I can't accept this. Kid, I will take revenge." Go to hell and take revenge. Yi Hao curled his lips in disdain. How could a dead person talk about revenge? Ding dong, congratulations to host for killing Mu Zheng's clone, Mu Lei. Congratulations to host for obtaining 7 million experience points. Congratulations to host for obtaining 700,000 soul points. What the hell is this? Clone? Hearing the system's voice, Yi Hao thought he heard wrongly and took a closer look. It's actually a clone. It's so strong. I didn't notice it at all. It's exactly the same. Yi Hao was shocked and envious of Mu Zheng's clone ability. Yi Hao thought that it would be great if he could have a few more clones. However, Yi Hao also felt that it was a pity. He didn't expect that he only killed Mu Zheng's clone. That meant that Mu Zheng's real body was still alive. Just you wait. I will kill you sooner or later. At this moment, in a secret room of Mu Shengzhen, Mu Zheng suddenly opened his eyes. Damn ant, I will kill you with my own hands. After Mu Zheng finished speaking, he closed his eyes again and started to cultivate. As his cultivation had improved rapidly recently, his clone technique had also improved a lot. If there were no accidents, he would be able to have another clone soon. The strength of a clone was that as long as one clone didn't die, even if his real body died, he wouldn't die. Most importantly, with a clone, it was equivalent to increasing his combat power by several times. Similarly, if the clone cultivated, it would also increase his real body's combat power. However, he didn't expect that the clone that he had painstakingly cultivated for so many years would actually be killed by Yi Hao just like that. If he didn't take revenge, he wouldn't be a gentleman. Looking at the blood rain falling from the sky, Zhao Xiong was terrified. Finally, the martial power in the sky dissipated. Zhao Xiong knew that the battle was over. However, there would be big trouble in the future. No matter which side suffered a loss, they would definitely not let it go. Yi. Commander Yi, just you alone? Where are the others? Seeing Yi Hao land on the ground with the blood-stained dual sabers on his shoulders, Zhao Xiong looked up at the sky and carefully asked Yi Hao. Dead. Yi Hao spat out these two words. He had been thinking about the matter of his doppelganger. He imagined that since Mu Zheng could clone, then Mu Zheng must have a clone technique. Therefore, he had to get it. Therefore, for revenge and for his clone, he had to set foot on Mu Shengzhen as soon as possible. What? Dead? All dead? Hearing Yi Hao's words, Zhao Xiong felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He couldn't accept this news for a while. Mu Shengzhen sent envoys, but they all died at the hands of Mu Shengzhen. How was he going to explain this to Mu Shengzhen? He estimated that even 10 spiritual medicine sects wouldn't be enough to withstand Mu Shengzhen's wrath. Chapter 382. What? Do you have a problem with that? Yi Hao raised his eyebrows and looked at Zhao Xiong coldly. Yi Hao was also a little unhappy with Zhao Xiong. The fact that Mu Shengzhen's people could come here meant that Zhao Xiong and Mu Shengzhen were somewhat related. Zhao Xiong panicked when he saw Yi Hao's unhappy expression. He quickly shook his head and said, I wouldn't dare. That would be the best. Yi Hao said calmly. Then, please go back to the sect and rest. Zhao Xiong wiped off his cold sweat and said to Yi Hao fearfully. Regardless of his strength, Yi Hao was also a member of the Bai Xing sacred dynasty. He couldn't afford to offend him. When Zhao Xiong saw that the 3 sacred factions had gathered at the spiritual medicine sect, he was so excited that he couldn't sleep. However, he felt as if he had fallen into a bottomless abyss. Sect Master, what should we do? Seeing that Yi Hao had brought everyone in, an elder asked worriedly with a worried expression. Don't talk. Let me think about it. Zhao Xiong waved his hand impatiently. Seeing that Yi Hao and Guoshuefu were so familiar with each other, it meant that the Bai Xing sacred dynasty and Gedanzhen were very close. This also meant that the 2 sacred factions had a connection. Although Mu Shengzhen was only a sacred faction, it was also his backer. Now that he was in a dilemma, no matter what he chose, he would have to face the wrath of a sacred faction. Sigh, why am I so unlucky? Zhao Xiong sighed. He hadn't expected to encounter such a situation. Go and report to Mu Shengzhen everything that happened. Zhao Xiong pondered for a moment and suddenly said. A few elders immediately asked worriedly, Sect Master, if we do that, we will offend the Bai Xing sacred dynasty. What else can we do? No matter what, we have nothing to do with the Bai Xing holy dynasty. Mu Shengzhen is our backer. Seeing that the elders still wanted to speak, Zhao Xiong continued, moreover, the truth can't be hidden forever. It's only a matter of time before Mu Shengzhen finds out about this. It's possible that they already know about it now. Then what should we do? When the time comes, he will charge us with the crime of not reporting it. Then our spirit medicine sect will be finished. After hearing Zhao Xiong's words, one of the elders immediately panicked. Therefore, we should try our best not to participate in this matter. However, we still have to report it, Zhao Xiong said cautiously. Because in front of this kind of saint-level force, he could only play the role of cannon fodder. If he got involved in something like this, and wasn't careful, he and the Spirit Panacea sect would all die a horrible death. Therefore, the best solution was to not participate. No matter which side it was, he would not participate in it. This was because he knew that these super forces would never start a fight. Because as soon as they started a war, the entire Myriad Kingdom continent would be shaken. Zhao Xiong thought for a moment and was still a little worried. You guys go entertain them. I will send a message myself. Zhao Xiong went to the sound-transmitting pavilion alone and explained the matter in detail. Of course, Zhao Xiong cleverly removed the matter as if it had nothing to do with him. After a while, a message came from the sound-transmitting pavilion. Sect Master Zhao, you did a good job in this matter. We already know that this matter is not over between us and the Bai Xing holy dynasty. However, you have to find out whether that person is from the Bai Xing holy dynasty or not. Phew! Zhao Xiong exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and felt his body lighten. Sure enough, he had guessed right. Mu Shengzhen already knew about this matter. Fortunately, he had reported it. Otherwise, he would have suffered a lot. However, he had already done what he had to do. As for the rest of the matter, he would try his best not to participate. Moreover, Mu Shengzhen probably knew that he did not have the ability to do so, so he did not ask him to do anything else. This was what he was happy to see. Although Zhao Xiong believed that Yi Hao's identity should be correct, he still agreed to investigate whether Yi Hao was from the Bai Xing holy dynasty. Yi Hao, who were those people just now? What grudge do you have with them? Guoshuefu looked around and asked Yi Hao worriedly. The reason for that was because she was unable to understand exactly what had happened to make Yi Hao disregard everything and charge forward to fight without saying anything. At this time, Mu Qingyu did not ask, but she also looked at Yi Hao with concern. Those people are from Mu Shengzhen. Yi Hao looked at the two women and did not hide it. Mu Shengzhen. The two women's expressions changed. That was a Saint-grade force. What kind of grudge did Yi Hao have with Mu Shengzhen that made Yi Hao rush up to kill without hesitation? At the same time, the two women were also curious. Was Yi Hao really so fearless? Yi Hao had killed Bai Xing, king of the Bai Xing holy dynasty. Not long ago, they found out that Bai Yi, the prince of the Bai Xing holy dynasty, had also died at the hands of Yi Hao. This caused a blood feud between Yi Hao and the Bai Xing holy dynasty. It was absolutely impossible to change or make up for it. After all, killing the only prince of the Bai Xing holy dynasty meant that he could become the crown prince of the Bai Xing holy dynasty in the future. Regardless of others, the sacred emperor of the Bai Xing holy dynasty would be the first to not let Yi Hao off. However, Yi Hao was so restless that he had killed Mu Shengzhen's men as soon as he arrived at the spiritual medicine sect. This meant that Yi Hao had set up another strong enemy for himself. Moreover, Yi Hao's two strong enemies were one of the top forces in the Myriad Kingdom continent. What kind of trump card did Yi Hao have that made him so fearless? Some time ago, I almost died in the hands of Mu Shengzhen's men. Because my cultivation was low, they didn't like me and wanted to kill me. So I swore that I would destroy Mu Shengzhen. Yi Hao clenched his fists and said angrily, "There's such a thing?" The two women were secretly surprised. No wonder Yi Hao had attacked Mu Shengzhen's men at all costs. No matter who it was, they would be incomparably angry. However, for some experts this was something they were used to. After all, in the Myriad Kingdom continent, the strong were respected. If I was stronger than you, I could kill you, and you couldn't do anything about it. Who asked you to be weak? This was a dog-eat-dog world. What was your strength at that time, and what was the strength of the other party? The two women looked at Yi Hao curiously. One had to know that in the eyes of the two women, with Yi Hao's personality, it was already good enough that he didn't cause trouble himself. How could someone provoke him? If Yi Hao knew what the two women were thinking at this moment, he would definitely cry out that he was wronged. I was in the martial spirit realm at that time, and the other party should have been in the martial emperor realm. Yi Hao didn't have anything to hide from the two women and directly told them the truth. After the two women heard Yi Hao's words, they looked at each other. Their bright eyes were round, as if they wanted to pop out, revealing the shock in their hearts. They had thought that Yi Hao's cultivation realm would be very low at that time, but at the very least, he should be in the martial honor realm. Who would have thought that Yi Hao was only in the martial spirit realm? A martial spirit realm cultivator appearing in the middle of fighting for the divine artifact. How reckless was that? No wonder he was beaten up. If they knew that the divine artifact belonged to Yi Hao, who knew how they would feel? However, what shocked them even more was that Yi Hao, with his martial spirit realm cultivation, was actually able to survive the attack of a martial emperor. He was really an unkillable cockroach. Chapter 383. After recovering from her shock, Guoshuefu analyzed, "However, we should be careful. I have a feeling that the spiritual herb sect has a special relationship with Mu Shengzhen. They'll probably join forces with Mu Shengzhen to deal with us. The spiritual herb sect is nothing to be afraid of. Moreover, I believe that Zhao Xiong doesn't have the courage to deal with me. At most, he'll send a message to Mu Shengzhen. If he's not suicidal or has a screw loose, he'll probably stay out of this matter. He won't dare to do anything to me. Yi Hao smiled and shook his head. When the two women heard Yi Hao's analysis, they nodded approvingly. They felt that Yi Hao's analysis made sense. Then what should we do now? Are we just going to wait for Mu Shengzhen to come knocking on our door? Guo Xuefu asked. She believed that Yi Hao wouldn't be so quiet. He would definitely make a move. Yi Hao smiled cunningly. Of course not. Next, we'll announce that we're from the Bixing Sacred Dynasty. Let the Bixing Sacred Dynasty and Mu Shengzhen fight each other. The two women rolled their eyes at Yi Hao. They hadn't expected Yi Hao to be so evil. He actually allowed two opposing forces to misunderstand each other and kill each other, while he watched from the sidelines and reaped the spoils of war. However, the two women were looking forward to seeing if the Bixing Sacred Dynasty and Mu Shengzhen would fall for the trap and start fighting. Therefore, with Yi Hao's secret agreement, the Imperial Guards wandered around the spiritual herb sect as if they were strolling in their own backyard. At the same time, they mingled with the disciples and elders. After all, people wanted to climb higher. Who wouldn't want to have more contact with powerful factions? When the spiritual herb sect's people saw the Imperial Guards lowering their stance and taking the initiative to mingle with them, they swarmed over like flies, trying to curry favor with them. The Imperial Guards were also generous. They told the crowd about their duty in the Bixing Sacred Dynasty's Imperial Palace. They boasted about it to the skies. The disciples and elders were so envious that their eyes lit up. Your Excellency, is the Bixing Sacred Dynasty really that good? You can sleep there and cultivate faster than I can in the spiritual herb sect. It can't be, my lord. I feel that our spiritual potion sect is already very good. When one of the Imperial Guards heard the two disciples' question, he glanced at the spirit medicine sect. His eyes filled with disdain. Do you know what a saint-class faction is? Look, your sect leader is only at the Emperor Wu realm. Look, I'm at the Emperor Wu realm. Think about it. I work in the palace. How can I have so much time to cultivate? The Imperial Guard continued to brag. At the same time, he released his aura. Wow! His Excellency is so powerful. If only I were in the Holy Dynasty. Many disciples exclaimed in envy when they felt the aura of the guard. If you do well, maybe I'll put in a good word for you with the commander. When the commander is happy, he might even take you back to the Holy Dynasty. The guard said with a smile. Ah, how can we? Thank you, Your Excellency. Please help us and put in a good word for us in front of the commander. Look, Your Excellency, these are the elixirs that I refined. Although I know that you won't like them, please accept them. I have some here too. Here's mine too. Please accept them. When the disciples heard the guard's words, they were all excited. They scrambled to shove some of their treasures into the guard's hands. Zhao Xiong saw this and he couldn't help but feel angry. The Bixing Sacred Dynasty is really arrogant. And Yi Hao, he deserves to die. Although Zhao Xiong was angry when he saw the mess in the sect, he couldn't do anything about it. However, he had completed the task given to him by Mu Shengzhen. He was certain that Yi Hao was from the Bixing Sacred Dynasty. There was no doubt about it. When the guards said that they were on duty in the Bixing Sacred Dynasty, they remembered it vividly and couldn't have made it up. If they weren't from the Bixing Sacred Dynasty, how could they be so lawless? Although Zhao Xiong couldn't do anything to Yi Hao, he had to badmouth Yi Hao in front of Mu Shengzhen. Zhao Xiong immediately sent the results of his investigation to Mu Shengzhen. At that moment, in Mu Shengzhen, the sect master was addressed as the Sacred Master. An elder in charge of collecting information respectfully handed over the information sent by Zhao Xiong to the sacred master. The Bixing sacred dynasty has gone too far. Send 10 small teams of martial sages. No matter how big or small they are, destroy 100 countries and offer sacrifices to the souls of our disciples in heaven. The sacred master was furious. He had already been bullied. If he didn't do anything, he would be a laughing stock at Mu Shengzhen. Yes, Your Excellency. An elder, who was a martial sage, immediately walked out of the hall. Tell all the countries and forces under your command to be on alert and prepare to destroy the prestige of the Bixing sacred dynasty. The sacred master continued to instruct. Although Mu Shengzhen was a sect, it was a real sacred force. Its foundation was definitely not inferior to the national forces. Mu Shengzhen had at least 80,000 countries, big and small, attached to it. Therefore, if a sacred force did not make a move, it would cause turmoil in the myriad country continent. Moreover, at their level, war was no longer about the number of people, but the countries. In the blink of an eye, hundreds and thousands of countries would become cannon fodder. Even the cannon fodder could not catch up. Their mountains and rivers would be destroyed and their countries would be wiped out. Sacred Master, isn't this a bit? Many elders were shocked. They did not expect the Sacred Master to make such a big move. Did the Sacred Master really want to start a full-scale war with the Bixing sacred dynasty because of this? In fact, this was not what the Sacred Master wanted. Someone had ordered him to do so. He dared not disobey that person's decree. However, he could not mention that person. He could only say in a deep voice, "Pass down my order. Do not disobey my decree. Otherwise, kill without mercy." Yes, seeing that the Sacred Master was so tough, no one dared to make the Sacred Master unhappy. They immediately agreed. "Sacred Master, how should we deal with the spiritual medicine sect?" An elder immediately asked. "The spiritual medicine sect is just a small chess piece. For that thing, nothing else is important. As long as you don't ruin my plan, don't interfere." The Sacred Master's heart was filled with enthusiasm when he thought of that thing. How should we deal with that reckless commander? The elder was naturally referring to Yi Hao. "You don't have to worry about that. You just need to supervise the war." The Sacred Master waved his hand. After half an hour, all the forces on the continent were shocked. Because the forces of the countries that were attached to the Bixing sacred dynasty were destroyed in an instant. Among them, there were spiritual countries, king countries, and even honorable countries. Suddenly, the forces that were attached to the Bixing sacred dynasty began to feel threatened. After all, they were attached to the Bixing sacred dynasty. In addition to being afraid of the Bixing sacred dynasty, they also wanted the Bixing sacred dynasty's protection. According to the current situation, someone was going to attack the Bixing sacred dynasty. In the end, they would be the ones to suffer. After another half an hour, Mu Shengzhen announced publicly that he was going to start a full-scale war with the Bixing sacred dynasty. Many forces were even more confused about the situation. Logically speaking, although these two forces were both saint-level forces, they were usually completely unrelated. Chapter 384. A full-scale war was not the same as an ordinary war. A full-scale war was a situation where one side would not rest until the other side was dead. If there was no deep hatred or irreconcilable knot, no force would do such a thing. Because it was a situation where one side would lose 800 men in order to injure the enemy. It would even result in a life-and-death struggle. Therefore, generally speaking, at most, two forces would send some experts and then drag the war to a few small countries. The two forces would then start a duel, and the final winner would be determined. No matter what the result was, it would not hurt their foundation. However, a full-scale war was different. It would be fine if they did not do anything, but once they did, they would suffer great losses. Not to mention other losses, just the resources consumed would be immeasurable. Moreover, a war between the holy dynasties would take hundreds of years or even thousands of years to come to an end. At the same time, in the Nine Dragons' golden palace of the Baixing Holy Dynasty, Holy Emperor Baixing sat on the throne that symbolized the supreme power of the Baixing Holy Dynasty. He was high and mighty, looking down on all living things. At this time, there were thousands of officials standing in the imperial court. At a glance, the lowest cultivation level was at the martial emperor realm. Even the eunuchs around the emperor were at the martial emperor realm. This was the foundation of a holy dynasty. Dear ministers, do you know that Mu Shengzhen has destroyed 100 countries? The emperor used his imperial aura to suppress all the officials and his voice exploded in the imperial court. Emperor Mu Shengzhen is too presumptuous. Let me kill him. A big man in silver armor walked out and knelt on the ground. If someone else had said this, they might have been mocked by others. However, this burly man was actually a martial sage. All right, King Baihe, I allow it. He has destroyed 100 countries of my Baixing Holy Dynasty. Go and destroy 1,000 of them. The emperor was pleased when he saw someone stand out. His tone was calm as he spoke. Once his decree was issued, there would definitely be 1,000 countries that would be sentenced to death. One had to know that even the smallest country had a population of hundreds of thousands. How many people would there be in 1,000 countries? However, in the eyes of a superior, these people's lives were like grass that could be sacrificed at any time. In his eyes, killing 1,000 countries was no different from killing 1,000 ants. He clasped hands and bowed, then strode out of the hall to carry out the mission the sage emperor had given him. Contact Gudanzin and ask him to deliver the elixirs to me. The Baixing Holy Dynasty will remember his kindness. The holy emperor said as he watched Baihe leave. Pass down my order, the entire nation is to prepare for war. This Mu Shengzhen, does he think the Baixing Holy Dynasty is a pushover? At the sacred emperor's command, the long-dormant machine of the Baixing sacred dynasty began to operate rapidly. All of you are dismissed. The sage emperor waved his hand. We will take our leave. May the sacred emperor live forever. All the officials and generals called out in unison. Seeing that all the officials had left, the sage emperor waved his hand at his servants. All of you are dismissed as well. Yes. Hundreds of eunuchs and palace maids immediately left the Nine Dragons' palace. Creak. The doors of the Nine Dragons' palace closed slowly. The sage emperor, who had been looking down on the world, suddenly had a change of expression. Hatred appeared on his face as he gritted his teeth and said, "My beloved son, don't worry. I will make sure that the person who killed you dies a horrible death. These 1,000 countries will be buried with you first." In fact, the sage emperor had known that Baihe was dead when he had heard about Bai Wu's death. He had also been wondering if someone was trying to deal with the Baixing Holy Dynasty. Otherwise, why would such things happen in the Baixing Holy Dynasty one after another? Although the sage emperor was saddened by the news of Baihe's death, he had kept it a secret. This was because the Bai family had tens of thousands of members of the royal family. Although he was the emperor, there were countless people staring at his throne with glittering eyes. After all, the blood of the royal family flowed in their veins. He had been upright in the past and had suppressed those people from acting recklessly. Besides, he had a son, so he believed that he could rely on his ruthless methods. He would definitely help Baihe ascend the throne. Then, the throne of the Baixing Holy Dynasty would be reserved for his bloodline. However, Baihe's death meant that his bloodline had been cut off. Moreover, because of his cultivation level and the cultivation method he had practiced, it was too overbearing. If nothing went wrong, it would be difficult for him to have a son in the future. If the news of Baihe's death was leaked, it would cause an uproar in the imperial court. Even the world would be shaken. It would also cause the royal family of the Bai family and some ambitious people to start coveting his throne. The longer he was the emperor, the more selfish he became. He absolutely could not tolerate the fact that the throne that should have belonged to his bloodline was given to someone else, even if it was his own family. No, I am not satisfied. The sage emperor's eyes were filled with unwillingness. No matter what, I must have another son. The throne that I have worked so hard to obtain must not fall into the hands of others. After thinking for a while, the sage emperor made up his mind. It should be known that every country and every force was the same. The competition for power was extremely cruel. Even he did not know how many people he had stepped on and how many competitors he had killed to obtain the throne and become the sage emperor of the Bishing holy dynasty. He only knew how difficult the process was to obtain the throne. He could not give the throne to another bloodline. This was also why he had fought Mu Shengzhen at all costs. He knew that Mu Shengzhen had a secret technique that allowed him to create clones. As the sage emperor of the Bishing holy dynasty, he could not leave the Bishing holy dynasty alone and focus on procreating. However, he had to be busy with procreating so that he could have a descendant and not let his bloodline be cut off. However, he had to make it so that no one would notice. He had to procreate, be busy with the affairs of the imperial court, and cultivate. He would not be able to take care of everything. If he could create a clone, it would be the best way for him. Since Mu Shengzhen had attacked him for no reason, he would be more than happy to oblige in order to obtain the secret technique to create clones. In his opinion, with Gudanzan's help, he would almost certainly win the battle. Elixirs played a huge role in a war. As long as Gudanzan provided him with an endless supply of elixirs, Mu Shengzhen would be nothing in his eyes. After all, although a sect and a country were both sacred forces, there was still a big gap between them. Moreover, the Bishing holy dynasty had been quiet for a long time. It was time to let people know the power of the Bishing holy dynasty. Moreover, his son had been killed and his bloodline destroyed. This endless anger had been bottled up in his chest, and it was time to vent it. Most importantly, he had no grudges with Mu Shengzhen. However, Mu Shengzhen had destroyed 100 countries for no reason. Did Mu Shengzhen really think that he was a pushover? He had to teach Mu Shengzhen a lesson and let the world know that the Bishing holy dynasty was not to be trifled with. The Bishing holy dynasty's decision shocked many people. They had thought that there was some misunderstanding between the Bishing holy dynasty and Mu Shengzhen. They thought that Mu Shengzhen was just trying to make a show of strength. As long as the Bishing holy dynasty softened their stance, the two forces would negotiate and the war would not start. After all, no one would have the temperament to start a war with the entire country just because of a disagreement. Just as everyone was waiting for the Bishing holy dynasty's response, suddenly, there was news that 1,000 countries under Mu Shengzhen's command had been massacred. This made people even more confused. What was wrong with these two forces? Before they could figure out what was going on, another 1,000 countries had been destroyed. How much hatred did these two forces have? Chapter 385. Back in the Spirit Panacea sect, Meng Hao was in his room. This saint-class organization really is something else. Yi Hao couldn't help but click his tongue as he listened to Guo Xuefu's explanation. Yi Hao hadn't expected that his plan would succeed so easily. The two sacred factions would start a dogfight. However, Yi Hao was shocked when he heard the actions of the two sacred factions. Yi Hao hadn't thought about how the two factions would start a fight. In his opinion, it would be good enough if there was some friction between the Bishing sacred dynasty and Mu Shengzhen. From the looks of it now, this was no longer a conflict. The two of them were absolutely irreconcilable. Yi Hao had originally thought that his Flame Dragon Empire was already a decent force to be reckoned with. However, compared to a saint-ranked force, he was still nothing more than cannon fodder. This made Yi Hao even more eager to subdue more factions. He had subdued more than 20 martial emperors in the primordial ruins. These people were basically the leaders of royal factions. Therefore, he had close to 20 royal factions under his command. Of course, these royal factions also controlled many factions. However, compared to the sacred factions, they were just the tip of the iceberg. What puzzled Yi Hao was that Mu Shengzhen had attacked the Bixing sacred dynasty because of him. After all, he had slapped Mu Shengzhen's face. It was normal for Mu Shengzhen to go to the Bixing sacred dynasty to regain some face. However, why hadn't the Bixing sacred dynasty sent someone to Mu Shengzhen to understand the situation? Why had they started a war? Yi Hao guessed that there must be more to this. No matter what, if the two factions started a war, it would only be beneficial to him. There was absolutely no harm in it. Now, without spending a single soldier, he had caused his two enemies to start a dogfight. Of course, Yi Hao was happy to see this. As long as the Bixing sacred dynasty and Mu Shengzhen went to war, they wouldn't have time to deal with him. That would give him time and space to develop. If Mu Shengzhen and the Bixing holy dynasty knew that Yi Hao was the one behind all of this, they would probably be angered to death. However, Yi Hao was also puzzled by the fact that he had killed Mu Zheng's clone. Logically speaking, Mu Zheng shouldn't have done nothing after all. But so far, it seemed that there really wasn't any movement. Yi Hao did not believe that Mu Zheng was such a generous person. Killing his doppelganger was equivalent to killing his life. How could Mu Zheng possibly take this lying down? Yi Hao guessed that Mu Zheng must be holding back a big move and waiting for him to jump into it. However, Yi Hao was still looking forward to Mu Zheng's appearance. After all, he was very interested in Mu Zheng's doppelganger technique. Meanwhile, in the direction of the Fire Dragon Empire, the allied forces of the four kingdoms of the Sky Wolf Kingdom were playing a game of cat and mouse. They were unhurriedly encircling the entire Fire Dragon Empire. My lord, the Fire Dragon Empire has been strengthening their defenses, but they haven't done anything else. The Sky Wolf ruler stood respectfully beside the black-robed sect master. 1 month's time is up. Destroy 4 cities. The black-robed sect master said softly. Yes. The Sky Wolf ruler agreed happily. After all, apart from destroying the 4 cities of the Fire Dragon Empire at the beginning, his 10 million allied forces had not done anything else. He knew that the 10 million allied forces were unable to endure the hunger and thirst. Of course, he hadn't been idling in secret these days. By relying on the might of the 9 million allied forces, he had secretly subdued dozens of martial spirit realm martialists. There were even a few hundred martial kings. He wasn't worried at all. Even if the men in black were to leave the Sky Wolf Kingdom, he was still confident that he could suppress the other 3 kingdoms and even take them under his command. Moreover, he had been secretly developing his forces. In a short period of time, the 4 million troops under his command had been secretly increased to 10 million. Compared to before, it had more than doubled. Therefore, he was now looking forward to the men in black leaving the Sky Wolf Kingdom as soon as possible. After all, he was used to being an emperor. Now, in his own palace, there were so many powerful people living there. He had to bow and scrape every day to deal with them. This kind of life was not something an emperor should live. Day by day, he was living too sullenly. He was no different from a servant. Moreover, he had to constantly worry about whether these people would get rid of him after he had outlived his usefulness. If he was careless and angered them, they might even kill him. It's time to show you the might of the Sky Wolf Kingdom. The Sky Wolf ruler's eyes sparkled as he left the residence of the men in black. As soon as he returned to the main hall, the Sky Wolf ruler ordered his generals, "Order the allied forces to move out. Destroy 1 more city in each direction. Remember to wash them with blood. Don't even leave an ant behind." The moment the Sky Wolf Kingdom gave the order, the allied forces of the 4 kingdoms immediately moved out. 1,000,000 troops were sent out in each direction. They were majestic, determined to destroy the 4 cities of the Fire Dragon Empire in one go. One had to know that the Fire Dragon Empire only had 20 cities left and only 1,000,000 soldiers. Of course, this number was enough to crush all the other duchies. However, in the face of the allied forces of the 4 kingdoms, they were like weak babies. Moreover, there were at most 50,000 soldiers in each city. The allied forces of the 4 kingdoms had sent out 1,000,000 soldiers in each city just to take down the 4 cities. This was making a mountain out of a molehill. How arrogant! Reporting. Greetings, great general, left and right prime ministers. Little Cloud City is in danger. A large number of enemy troops have appeared and are beginning to attack the city. An intelligence soldier knelt at Guan Yu's feet and reported. What? How many troops are there? Li Hong's expression changed as he anxiously asked. There are about 1,000,000 enemy troops, the intelligence soldier said with an unsightly expression. What? 1,000,000? Zhou Ji's heart suddenly trembled. The Fire Dragon Empire's entire army was only 1,000,000, and they were scattered across the various cities. Including the hidden forces, they had less than 1,500,000 soldiers at most. What was the point of fighting? They weren't even on the same level. Great General Guan, please quickly report to the Lord. The enemy is at the city gate. If something big happens, we won't be able to bear the responsibility. At this moment, an official anxiously said to Guan Yu, "The Lord has important matters to attend to right now. He has no time to deal with such a small matter." Guan Yu's phoenix eyes swept over the civil and military officials. Humph, as the ruler of an empire, if the destruction of an empire is a small matter, then what is a big matter? I think this country will be destroyed sooner or later. Yang Long coldly snorted. Yang Long was a descendant of a fallen family. He was being hunted down. He wanted to hide his identity, but he accidentally joined the Fire Dragon Empire's army. Because he was a 4th-level martial spirit, his performance in the army was outstanding. His position in the army skyrocketed, but he also became more and more arrogant. Because in the Fire Dragon Empire's army, he found that most of the generals were only in the Wu Ho realm. There were even many martial generals and only a handful of martial kings. Therefore, in the Fire Dragon Empire, other than Guan Yu, no one could suppress him. But because of his strength, he was highly regarded by Guan Yu. And the enemies he had offended were too powerful. It was almost impossible for him to go back. In the beginning, he felt very uncomfortable coming to this low-level area. But in order to survive, he had no choice. But after a long time, he got used to the feeling of power, so his desire grew more and more. In addition, he had been in the Fire Dragon Empire for so long, but he had never seen Yi Hao. So in his eyes, Yi Hao didn't deserve to be the emperor, nor did he deserve his loyalty. Chapter 386. However, Guan Yu's cultivation level was usually hidden, so he didn't know much about it. He had also asked around, but when he heard that Guan Yu had the strength of a martial honorable, he immediately curled his lips in disdain. What a joke! How could there be a martial honorable in this low-level area? Furthermore, he was only a great general. Even if he was leading thousands of troops, why would a martial honorable care about that? Unless there was something wrong with his head. It was like an adult leading a group of newborns. What was the point of that? Who dares to talk about Lord? I think he's tired of living. Great General, I want this dog's head. How dare he talk about Lord? He's courting death. He deserves to be killed. Don't fight with me. I'm going to crush this dog's head. There's a first-come, first-serve rule. Give me this dog's life. Suddenly, 5 voices rang out from outside the hall. Hearing the 5 voices, Guan Yu's face lit up. He put down the green dragon crescent blade in his hand. This was because Yang Long's words had crossed his bottom line. Although he had the intention to nurture Guan Yu, if Guan Yu dared to talk about Yi Hao, he would not show any mercy and would kill him. Presumptuous! Who dares to talk about him outside the hall? Men, take him down! Yang Long was enraged as he waved his hand. Immediately, dozens of guards rushed out of the main hall. "Humph, a bunch of little bastards! How dare you offend your grandfather, Ran? You'll be bedridden for a few months." A mocking voice rang out from outside the door. Following that, sounds of fighting could be heard. In the end, all the guards fell back into the hall after a few seconds. Heavenly King Ran, this is not a good action. This is the forbidden area of the Imperial Palace. How can you use force? Suda laughed. Who are you? Men. Yang Long's eyes narrowed when he saw the guards being defeated. One had to know that these guards were all carefully selected and each of them had reached the Wu Ho realm. Although they were not considered strong in the Myriad Kingdom continent, they were considered experts in this small place. No matter how weak they were, they shouldn't be defeated in an instant. Hearing Yang Long's order, thousands of guards rushed into the hall and surrounded Ran Min and the others. "General Cheng, General Hua, please take down this group of thieves of unknown origin," Yang Long said as he looked at Qing Yaojin and Hua Xiong. His current status was even higher than Qing Yaojin and Hua Xiong. However, the two of them were the commanders of the Imperial Guards and were directly under Yi Hao's command. So, Yang Long's tone was still considered friendly. Qing Yaojin and Hua Xiong were about to give the order. However, when he saw Old K's, Zhao Zilong's, Su Da's, and Yu Fei's armors, he was stunned. "Commanders, what are you waiting for? Quickly take them down," Yang Long said anxiously when he saw the two not making a move. At this moment, Qing Yaojin and Hua Xiong had a strange look on their faces. They did not understand what was going on. Why were they fighting with their own people? "I don't believe that anyone dares to touch me." Zhao Zilong's silver armor was stained with blood. "Who do you think you are? How dare you order me around? Are you tired of living?" Dian Wei looked at Yang Long with disdain. "Humph, I am a third-grade general," Yang Long said proudly with his head held high. "Third-grade general? Great general!" They looked at each other. "What? Are you afraid now? Kneel down when you see me," Yang Long said proudly. "Afraid? Damn you!" Ran Min walked up to Yang Long and slapped him in the face. "How dare you hit me? You are courting death." After being hit, Yang Long immediately activated his martial arts power and slashed at Ran Min's neck with his hand. Crackle! In an instant, the power in Yang Long's hand caused the air to explode. His powerful martial spiritual aura suppressed the entire hall. General Yang is so powerful! Of course. Otherwise, how could General Yang be second only to one person and above everyone else? Who are these people? How could they appear in the palace of the Fire Dragon Empire? It seems that they are unlucky. They have angered General Yang Long. How could they have a good time? The Fire Dragon Empire had developed rapidly, so there were many newcomers in the court. Furthermore, because they had kept a low profile, the identities of Ran Min and the others had always been kept a secret. Other than a few people, very few people knew about them. Therefore, only a few people in the court knew the identities of these 5 people. Good timing! Seeing Yang Long's palm coming at him, Ran Min sneered and slapped at him again. Slap! The crisp slap echoed throughout the hall. Yang Long was stunned for a long time. He didn't expect that the attack he had gathered all of his power for would miss just like that. Furthermore, he felt a burning pain on his face. Seeing that all the officials were looking at him, Yang Long immediately felt like he had been utterly humiliated. After all, he had always acted superior in front of the civil and military officials. Not to mention the others, even the 2 prime ministers of Li Hong and Zhou were looked down upon by him. He had never placed them in his eyes because he was strong. But now, he had been slapped in front of so many people. Furthermore, he had been slapped in the face twice. How could he accept this? Unforgivable! I will take your dog life. Yang Long was furious. He snatched the weapon of a guard beside him and slashed at Ran Min. Yang Long's martial energy surged once again as he gathered all of his energy on the blade. Because the energy was too strong, the blade let out an intense trembling sound. This blade seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth. Get down on your knees. Looking at Yang Long, Ran Min's face was full of disdain. He didn't even put Yen Long in his eyes as he kicked at Yang Long's abdomen. Poochie! Yang Long was like a deflated balloon. The weapon in his hand fell to the ground and his entire body bent. At this moment, he could only feel the blood in his abdomen churning. He didn't even have the strength to stand up. Yang Long looked at Ran Min with difficulty and asked with difficulty, "Who are you?" Yang Long knew that Ran Min was definitely stronger than him since he could defeat him so many times. However, he was in the martial spirit realm. He was the strongest in this area. How could there be someone stronger than him? He couldn't accept it. You don't have the right to know your grandfather's name. Ran Min looked at Yang Long with disdain. Such a piece of trash dared to talk about the Lord. He really didn't know if he had brains. General, avenge me! At this moment, Yang Long could only ask Guan Yu, who was sitting below the dragon throne, for help. He believed that Guan Yu would definitely save him. Talking about the Lord should be executed. Looking at Yang Long, Guan Yu's eyes were full of coldness. What? Yang Long's face changed. He was afraid that he had misheard. General, you men, drag him away. Without waiting for Yang Long to finish, Guan Yu shouted at the guards, "Drag him away and feed him to the dogs." At this moment, some of the older people were still relatively calm. This was because they were already unhappy with Yang Long. In their hearts, Yi Hao was inviolable. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.